Remix. 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 Remix.
Oh, yeah. Welcome out. This is the Remix Morning Show. Right here on Black Liberation Media. In case you didn't know, I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. We are here to bring you that boom back breakfast. Just us, not just me. And you gotta see what's about to happen right here. It's the three. Starting off with not just me, but the one them called Dr. Paul. And he can be historic. He goes by the name of Lauren.
Like how you did that there.
That was slick. Well done. Peace. Welcome, everybody. Good morning.
What up?
Happy Dr. King Day.
King, celebrate. Sing, celebrate.
How y'all doing today?
Good. How you doing
great.
in your undisclosed location over there?
Yeah, you know. Doing well. Coming live from the 305 Miami.
Okay. All right. Got some rhyme. You got some bars over there too, Jared? I mean, we spitting today.
No bars.
Oh,
But I will say, speaking of that, though, I know we brought it up. I don't know what iteration it came up, but I do agree with DMV's own Crank Lucas, who made a point about with all the Diddy, 50, Netflix, and all this other stuff. He was saying, but 50, you a rapper. Where are the bars? Where are the bars? Enough with the documentaries and the sneak disses and the like, put some bars on it.
Hey, listen, Fabulous came back at him. I was like, you don't want to mess with Fab. Fab is nice with it. So Fab hit him with some bars and he ain't come. You like, he gonna try to put Lloyd Banks out there to battle him.
You know, but for the culture, as they say, we need some bars.
He's a barbarian in the black economy, but I don't know about on the microphone.
Oh wow.
Word. So everything is good. How was your weekend?
No, it was okay. You know, dealing with cars trouble, running around trying to handle business, but it wasn't too bad. Happy that it extended 3 days, and then we got the MLK Day parade down here. Well, we had a bunch of them, but I'll be heading to one soon.
Okay,
walking around, talking to the people, so I'm excited about that. How about you, Jared?
I had a good weekend. My oldest turned 20, so we celebrated which is surreal. And but I will say, speaking of car trouble, we had a little bit of that too. And because I had a little mechanic hookup, I feel like I got the rare opportunity to catch another mechanic in some fugazi, because usually I don't know anything about cars, so I don't know what's going. They tell you whatever. They give you, here's the diagnosis, and it's like, I don't know. So this time I took this diagnostic to our homeboy, our cousin, and who showed me, popped the hood and showed me how there's this thing connected to another thing, and the valve thing that was connected to the bigger boot thing, the hinge broke. So the valve had its own issue, but the big boot it was connected to was fine. But what the first mechanic tried to charge me for a new boot, and all that it needed was the fastener piece, and they were like, well, that counts as a broken boot, because I called them. And I said, I'm standing here with my homeboy. And I was like, first of all, who broke the piece? You didn't tell me the piece was broken. Did you break it? Well, of course, they were not going to cop to that. No. But he was like, he said, but I said, but the boot doesn't need to be replaced. I'm standing here looking at it. And he was like, well, that's just how we, it's technically broken because the fastener, And I was like, I said, okay. I said, that was slick. You're not going to see me again, but that was slick.
Bro,
that was slick.
This mechanic has had my car for almost 3.5 months right now. 3.5 months to put a water pump in. And the fact is that it's like a 14-hour job because of the vehicle. So nobody wants to do it. And I got it under warranty. So nobody really wants to do it. Because they like, all right, this is free work right here. And it's a 14-hour job. So they passed it from one mechanic to the dealership. Dealership said 2 weeks. Took it to another guy. And now he's talking about a week. They ain't going to get to it till this week. Hopefully.
Oh, man. I was like, they're trying to wait out the warranty.
Pretty much. I was like, these bastards, man.
Shady. Silberg is hilarious. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. But my car can get fixed. I don't know.
Oh, shots early. Oh boy, I tell you. I be out of these streets catching strays, running into all these different people, boy.
Yeah.
No need.
Jared don't remember his beefs. That's the problem. Jared got too many.
Incorrect.
He's a beefitarian.
No, I remember all of them. I remember all of the wrongs that have been done me. You don't have to catch strays. Send them to me.
Nah. I'm just guilty by association, man. That's it. I'm just guilty by association.
Oh, you had that professor that y'all were beefing with, and you ran into them in like another meeting, and they were mugging you, and you had no idea why. And then you remember, oh shit, I've been beefing with this.
But that in all seriousness, that's unprincipled, because the reverse has happened to me a lot too, where I've run into people who by association, and I'm like, that's not your fault though. That's not your fault though. So Jared Costanza, that's messed up. That's messed up. That's messed up. That's messed up.
So what do people say when they be like, yo, what's up with that ear doctor dude y'all be having on the show? Y'all be like, oh man, that dude's solid, right? That's what y'all be saying.
So, but I cut it off. So if somebody starts up, because in all honesty, what I this is something I have done, I do, not just for you or anybody. I let people know, like, if you start to fix your face, like, understand I'm on team ear doctor. So if you like, be clear, like, if you're gonna say something crazy, so I'm like, they're like, what's up with the ear doctor? I'm like, that's my man. That's the best DJ ever. And that's so and then I'm like, so what? What's up? What
we talking about? That's what I'm talking about. That's the pluck I'm talking about.
Let them know. Like, how could you have a problem with Jared? What's up? Jared is cool.
He's a cool dude.
That's my guy.
I be saying, yo, like, y'all just got a difference of opinion. That is all it is. That's it. Y'all are not ops. You just got a difference of opinion, perspective, all that.
That's all who you ran into out here.
Yo, how was MLK? How was Martin Luther King? Has he had any effect on you? What's your thoughts on this day being celebrated in this time? What y'all think about the whole MLK thing?
Oh, not you with the check-in question. Okay, it's Friday on a Monday.
Oh no, welcome to. That's right. I don't get to get on screen with Laurie.
I'll watch.
Nah, I always come up with some wild questions at the beginning. Yeah, see the temperature.
Yeah. Well, we got a little presentation because today's a little crossover, right?
Oh, okay.
The Black Atheist tradition coming to you on a Remix Monday.
The who? What?
A little bit. I'm gonna show you.
Oh, I wasn't in this email. My bad.
Atheist tradition today. And we have some certified classics from BLM, but one of my favorites is when Jared talks about MLK's legacy in the press and how it's changed over time. So just knowing that he had a last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos Our Community. I recommend it all the time. last year I did an interview just discussing that and thinking about how he wrote that, I think from Jamaica. Coretta writes the foreword to that. And so it's just great to imagine Dr. King, with the shades on, getting ready to write on the beaches of Jamaica. And he gave us a classic. So that's one of the things that inspires me and I remember about MLK.
Yeah. His last book I read was Why We Can't Wait. And I think that was about the garbage strike. Did I say that right? Maybe not. But sanitary. Yeah.
The sanitation strike. Actually, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was his last book, I believe. Why We Can't Wait.
No. Where do we go from here was the last book that he published the year before. But
before we get my parents and their organization, they used to have a MLK Day celebration in the morning time breakfast before they even started the holiday. So that was something they was doing, and then the holiday came about, and it's like, oh, cool. Well, so I was brought in early learning about MLK. We used to have little cards about different Black people that did stuff. So it's good learning about that. And I came up in a Christian household. So
what kind of cards when you say like
card with a person's face on the one side and then what they did on the back?
Okay. I got some of those.
Ah, look at that. Historic cards.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The location here. Hold on.
Roll around in your mansion back there and find it.
It's crazy how many people fall for this one. Like they really, it's such a nice house here. I'm like, what?
The green screen will get them, or the background will get folks.
Really do.
Yeah. There you go. There's it.
Okay, so let me see if it'll focus. I got cards.
Okay,
like these right here.
Oh, those are nice.
New mentor a few years ago. So I collected my 3. So I got my Malcolm one. Of course, we got Garvey here. And then finally we got Uncle James. Baldwin.
All right. Can you imagine getting them besides baseball cards back in the day? Like,
yeah, it would have been crazy. I would have loved it.
Yeah. How was the effect with you? What was your thoughts on MLK Day, Bo?
So first of all, a shout out to Aize Sabater, Dr. Sabater, who I got the idea from years ago. And when our daughters were born, I made index card versions of those just in the house with the folks I wanted to introduce them to. And which was one of my favorite projects. So that's the cards idea is dope, and it helps because it's something they play with and throw around and look at, and but for me, I got to shout out to Mr. Porter, Tom Porter, years ago, before I was really reading anything about King. Because of his time at, working with Coretta and being the head of the King Center in Atlanta, and working in that movement, he was privy to certain conversations and documents. And at the time, he was the first one to introduce me to the SCLC summer retreat speeches that King gave in 66 and 67, which when you read them, it's a stark difference. That's where, Douglas and Loggins were quoting King yelling at Andy Young, saying, "You're a capitalist and I'm not," and like really, confronting his increasing radicalism. And when I read those, and then finally, where do we go from here? It was a big shock. I mean, it was, and I kind of was pissed at, the being, because it was a stark recognition of the false symbol that I had been raised under for the most part. And then I even felt a little guilty because I did that stereotypical thing, it's Malcolm, not Martin. Martin was soft, Martin was this, that, and all that. And it's just not true. And he was differently radical, but it wasn't some soft punk, whatever. Right. And then the ideas he was trying to struggle with at the end that we don't get to be introduced to for the most part is crazy frustrating. So that's
I didn't see the Muslims getting sprayed down with hoses and keep going. So that's some shit right there. Wow. I ain't trying to go against each other. I'm just saying, but You know, like to keep going after you getting sprayed down with hoses and dogs sicked on you, and just be like, you know what, turn the other cheek. That's some radical shit right there. And while we talking on that point, big up to my sister LaShawn. She came up with these things right here, which you call historic matching cards. It's kind of hard to see, but they're matching cards where they got like a person on one side, and then you got to play the matching game. So that's dope game you can play with your kids, where you just put the cards down and you match them. So
It's like concentration, so it's two of the same card that you have.
Just lay them all down and
That's dope.
Yeah, that is dope.
All right. So where are we going now, y'all?
If you're ready, we got a journey to go down. I'm gonna drop the run sheet.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's how you want to, you know.
Well, it's been a minute. We haven't had a conversation.
Okay, he's back.
So maybe we want to do some housekeeping. Am I frozen?
Not no more.
Okay. I don't think so. And I have the slides pulled up. Is that what you just sent?
Yeah, if you can.
Do y'all need a break, or you're ready to go in? We ain't had no break. We don't need no break, I guess.
I don't need no break. I don't think so. Jared?
Can I bring something up before we get started?
Yeah, you sure can.
All right. I wanted to send a shout out. I got to have this brother come to lecture me and some other students back at Morris Brown back in the day. He just had his transition. Dr. Charles Finch, and he did work on ancient Egypt, African civilizations. He had books like Echoes of the Old Dark Land, talking about the Nile Valley, African origins of science. And he was a good brother, and I was very happy he came and talked to us back in the 96 era. 96. Yeah, so
yeah, listen, I'm glad you brought that up, man. And I think it's a good segue for our conversation today. And please, everybody, if you haven't checked I have one of our classic interviews on our channel here, The Historical Jesus and Mythical Christ with Dr. Charles Finch. I had the pleasure of interviewing him a number of times over the years, particularly back on PFW and WPFW and in DC, and really good dude. He was he studied under Cheikh Anta Diop. He was a medical doctor, Yale trained medical doctor who sort of as a side project studied the African contributions to what is now considered science and math and religion. And he interestingly argued that he left the Catholic Church once he realized the racism in the church, then studied the African origins of Christianity and used that to go back to the Catholic Church, which I always thought was fascinating. But that was his. And then for a while, towards the end of his life, he was doing even some YouTube stuff with his daughter. So there's some good YouTube content more recently of him talking about his work. He was very humble, very gracious. I thought he was brilliant. His presentations are fascinating. I've read I think at least 3 of his books, the Echoes, the African Science and Technology. And I think, I don't know. Anyway, but so, and in that I think it's in that interview, because it's some years old now, like you can even hear some discomfort with him telling me that, well, and for me, in him saying he was predicting based on his readings of the celestial heavens and movements that Obama was going to win and become president. And so this is why I still, so this is where I still struggle with, and I remember saying to him, we don't want that, politically this is bad, and Finch was like, but it's going to happen.
The stars, bro.
Yeah. Let's take it back to the Dogon tribe, man. I mean
all of that, So, he learned to read Medu Neter. So, he wasn't like many of us who only read the translations. Like, he studied the actual language. He brilliant dude. He's like to me, the joke I kind of should have run with more often. It was like, he was like the African centered Neil deGrasse Tyson. So it's like, because it was like he got into the science of the movements of the heavens, and then would explain how African people conceptualize that, and from my interpretation, turned that into mythology stories that would become the foundations of a lot of Western religion. So, but that's my spin on it. But he had his own, I think genius, but just a good dude, man. I just, I thought it really, so rest in power to him and
divine breath, Medinetu. Yes.
Thank you for queuing that up for us here, Doctor.
No doubt.
I'll definitely check more out about that ancestor. Y'all just put me on. So
yeah, Finch is dope, man. Finch is a good dude, man.
I love that blue he had on too. That looked clean.
Yeah, he was, I mean, he had that fly,
He rocked the guard.
He knows the chops. He know where to shop.
Like, the late great Dr. James Turner was fly as hell in them African clothes, boy. He was rocking that joint. He had his little Brooklyn flair on it, but it was like, like.
Yeah,
oh man. All right. Yeah.
Well, I got us queued up, but I do have a little intro for us. I'm experimenting with it, so if we're ready, we can let it rock. Right?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
It actually serves as a model for the same procedure you and I can use to get our problem solved. At Bandung, all the nations came together. They were dark nations from Africa and Asia. Some of them were Buddhists. Some of them were Muslim. Some of them were Christian. Some of them were Confucianists. Some were atheists. Despite their religious differences, they came together.
So I figure, that's a good start. Ancestor Omawale, Ancestor Malcolm telling us everybody, no matter what you believe, can come together and contribute to revolution. So from this side, we are not Confucianists. We are not Muslim. We are not Jewish. Or Jared is by lineage.
and we can leave it right there. That's
we are not Christian, but we are atheists. Oh, welcome to the Black Atheist tradition. It's been a minute, man. Our last one was February of last year. My comrade said this must be an annual program.
Oh wow.
Look what y'all done brought me into. I didn't even realize.
Let's bring it back. Okay. So we're gonna work through the slide. 100 years of Fanon. We should be joined by Comrade Babalu Turner, Fanon scholar and expert, who's going to discuss Fanon, Soweto, and American Black thought. But before we're joined by that, we wanted to talk about this, episode 3, 100 Years of Fanon. So if you aren't familiar with the series, episode 1, we heard from Ancestor Deborah Clark, this 1980 City Line interview about a Black atheist. Oh my God, they exist. Episode 2, we talked about Ancestor Walter Rodney with Dwayne Omawale Wong and his dialectical materialist method, but also how he kind of navigates this race class conversation we have, Pan-Africanism, communism, all those things. And so in episode 3, we wanted to, of course, celebrate Fanon. It's also 100 years of Malcolm X last year, right? But you had a series covering that, and you had a series celebrating Fanon and Lumumba. So we want to keep that going. Ready for the next slide, Jared?
Yep.
Ear Doctor, welcome. I don't know if you've been able to join the BNB circle. I know some of our brothers have been to Black Men Lab. We like to start with our values pledge. These are 5 values. So we like to read them out one by one. I think number 1's a value aligned with. You want to read that out for us?
We are critical thinkers.
Jared, number 2.
We are curious about this moment.
Number 3, we are coming together to take an active, responsible role in freeing our communities. Ear Doctor, can you read number 4 for us?
We are transforming to meet the moment.
And number 5, Jared.
We are bonded with Black women and all Black people in the fight for true freedom.
With one important exception, Black people who choose to fight for the enemy or use our struggle for personal or financial benefit need not apply. So
read the fine print, people. Read the fine print.
I know you gotta know. Yeah, we should bold the fine. It shouldn't be fine. It's bolded print for real. But if y'all rock with those values, you can rock with us. This is the first point of contact people have with Black Men Build, and this is not an official Black Men Build program, but I do want to share that when we put stuff together like this. So that we can jump
and
to
scan the QR code at the top if you want more information.
Exactly. We need some money, you know. All right. Now, What is the Black atheist tradition, or how are we choosing to define it? Because it can mean different things to different people. Some people shudder at that word, right? Atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think it's a new thing. It's never existed. It's something we made up the moment we were born. So here's how we choose to define it. Number one, we're rejecting colonizer capitalist religions and fighting their destructive impact on the colonized, especially the African diaspora. We look to ancestors like the indigenous Tuwe, I believe Taino, Deborah Clark, George Jackson, Richard Wright, and James Baldwin. Number two, we're going to explore the social experience of non-belief. We're going to get started today with the deconversion story. For people who don't know what that is, you're going to see challenging supernatural faith-based claims. Can this brother really predict Obama through the stars? Sure. Philosophical debate, scientific inquiry, and secular morality. And finally, sharpening the dialectical materialist method. It's not just what we don't believe. It's about the method we use to figure out what we do believe. So that's the Black atheist tradition. Now, I wanted to start it. It's been a minute. We had a lot of people who dropped really great resources for dialectical materialism. And then I know you and Renee got to talk to Luna and EJ out in Vietnam about their dialectical materialism textbook. So great connections since then. I ran into this sister. Her name is Breathe the Womanikin. And she had the story, I didn't want this, how I became a Black atheist. So I want to know if you were comfortable, take this journey with me and hear how she describes her experience and see what resonates with yours. Before we start that, Jared and I have our identities here, okay? What side you on here, doctor? You out. Do you have any good,
Oh, no, I mean, does that mean you don't have any deal with any type of spirituality? That's no spirituality?
Generally, yes. Typically, it means people who don't believe in God, usually as conceived by the mainstream religions.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't believe in other people's religion. I believe that that some people need it it's a psychological thing. Some people need an outer force to believe in to get through things. So some people need it, some people don't. Is there a higher this, that, or third? Who knows? We here, and like I said, I came up in a Christian house, but I learned about how the religions were used to enslave people and stuff like that. So I didn't mess with them. But I believe more in people and in the fact that they have a higher power inside them, but they just don't. They don't know it. So therefore, they look outside of themselves for that power. So.
Jared, what you think? I think that puts him on our side. I'm pretty sure that.
So what I kept hearing was, I admit, so I'm hung up. Like, I watch a lot of the atheist debates channels, and I really like their approach scientifically and logically. My problem, of course, that I have to overcome, to the extent that it needs to be overcome, is that it's a very white space. So I have to. It is uncomfortable. I have to admit that, but I do like the argumentation around what I just heard from your doctor. I like the response I often hear in those spaces that I do like is, I don't care if it's effective or plays some sort of positive role in helping people psychologically or whatever. I'm most interested in, is it true? And I feel like that's more where I'm headed, that outside of recognizing where people are and working around that in terms of organizing and wanting to organize, just personally, I'm more interested in believing or in approaching the world based on what I can identify as being true. So I'm just so I'm less interested and less moved increasingly these days by the arguments that I have been moved by in the past, that it plays a positive role. It can do this, it can do that, it can do this, it can do that. I want to know if it's true. And that's but that is also, aside from the whiteness in those spaces, that is another heavy dividing line for me in approaching these issues is they're not there in those atheist debate spaces to build Black radical organization and liberation. They're there to assess the claims and to sort of personally, and they have their own secular humanism and approach to philosophically to how they think it's going to be better for the world, this, that, and the third, but they're not politically organizing or wanting to in the way that I would like to think that I want to or support in those efforts. And that's sort of another contradiction that I do struggle with in these discussions, debates, et cetera, and so forth. So that's why I do appreciate this series as slow motion as it has been. And I do appreciate that we are attempting to bring more of these discussions into these spaces, because I do think more should be had. So
yeah, you hit something there where you talk about who's in the room when you're talking about this, because if you talk about faith-based rebellions, a lot of our rebellions was faith-based. Like if it wasn't for believing in something, it might have not have happened, or believing that you have faith that this is going to happen, or even putting that willpower in to make something happen. So some people tap into it different, some people, but that's the fine line about, does it matter if it's truth or does it help? You know what I mean?
Right.
And one of the essays, Lork, that you had us read for today, that the king considering communism and Christianity and the irreconcilability, whatever, of the two, I think in some ways it tries to address that question in an important way. But yeah.
And I know we're gonna come back to it, because Ear Doctor, how you describe your belief system is probably how I would describe it, honestly. Like that's why it's funny to me. I know people like to say agnostic. I think that's low-key a fake distinction. I know people say it is, but then I'm like, show me an atheist who doesn't fit your criteria for agnostic. I'll wait. Like we're all like, that's just a fancy word. People just don't want to argue, and that's cool. So for everyone in the agnostic camp, but that makes you more comfortable, whatever. To Ear Doctor's point, though, and we'll cover this in the future, Huey Newton in Revolutionary Suicide talks about his religious beliefs. And it's essentially like what Ear Doctor said. He's like, look, the Bible's got way too many contradictions, like a kid could point it out. I don't believe in it. I'm paraphrasing you. That ain't my shit. But I believe in the people. I have faith in the people. That was all he said. Same way as Mao. He said he was connected in that way. So they believe in the people. They believe in the here and now, our community. And that doesn't just mean everyone who's here. It can mean our ancestors who came before us. It can mean the future generations. Because Mao believes in the people, the future of his people. Right. So that's how I see it. But none of that requires a God, a supernatural force. And I think though it can be used to inspire revolution and slave uprisings as it has in the past, that can also, as you said, Your Doctor, you learn the history, be weaponized against us real quick, and they can flip the switch. So with Bree, we can see a similar experience, what I would say to mine, about her arriving at her religious, conclusions. So
is this clipped already or set to go?
It starts at 0 minutes, so I'll tell you where to jump, but we can start with the intro for a little bit.
What's up? Welcome to Bree the Womanican. I am Bree. So happy to have you with me today. I hope the title didn't scare you off. Whatever I decided to title it, I'm still not quite sure. But I do have a lot of reservations about making this video. I know a lot of Black people are religious in the sense where they don't even want to entertain anything remotely demonic or satanic. So I am worried about scaring off some Black Christians here. And if that's the case, if you're still at that point in your Christianity, then you probably wouldn't even have clicked on this video. But you might have clicked on it because you're curious to know about my story. So the purpose of this video is I wanted to share my story with anyone who had a similar journey to me. Being a Black atheist is incredibly rare. Being an atheist in general is rare. I'm all about providing the solidarity and letting people know that they're not alone. I recorded this video 6 months ago and I was like, no, I can't do it. I don't want to scare people off. And I just wasn't confident about it. But I woke up this morning and my homepage on YouTube, I was just getting recommended a lot of Black atheists. And I was like, there are Black atheists? I didn't know that. And I just was binge watching their videos and they inspired me. So here we go. So in this video, I just wanted to go over what is my definition of atheism and how did I become a Black atheist when really all the odds were stacked against me. Somehow I managed to become a minority within a minority. I don't want this video to be too long, but I will start off with my background and my history. I came from a mixed denominational background in the sense really everybody was all over the place. My birth father was not in my life, but I always grew up knowing that he was a Muslim. His whole family was Muslim. My maternal grandmother's side were Jehovah's Witness. My stepfather's side, I believe they were Catholic. He went to Catholic school. He gets down on the side of the bed every night and does this. So I'm pretty sure they're Catholic. My mother's father's side, they were Methodist, and that was the church that I was the most familiar with. But how I was raised in my household was we were pretty much non-denominational Christian. I knew the basics and stuff. We went to church a lot more when I was younger, but as I got older, we stopped going, primarily because the home church that we used to go to was way on the other side of town. It was like a 45-minute to an hour-long drive to get there, and my family just never really found a church that was closer to us. As for the Jehovah's Witness side, during my early childhood, my family had decided to depart from it and just become non-denominational Christian. When I got into my 20s, my family got back into it, but I didn't really know much about the Jehovah's Witnesses or anything like that. That wasn't a big influence growing up. We still celebrated birthdays and holidays and all of those things. I knew the Bible stories. I was given a little kid's Bible that I used to read that had pictures, which I loved. You know, I have a fascination with religious stories and mythology in general. I probably should get clear on who this video is for, because if it's for other atheists, I can say things like comparing Christianity to mythology and some of the other examples I'll use later on. But if I'm trying to get through to Christians, then referring to their religion as mythology would be offensive. That depends on who the audience for this video is. So we'll see how I feel about it as I continue. I believed that Christianity was the one true religion and all the other religions were mythology, right? Greco-Roman myths, Hinduism, Buddhism. I thought that was just all mythology. And I was just lucky to be born in the right religion. All the other ones, Egyptians and Native Americans, just sucks for them. They were born at the wrong place and at the wrong time. And that's how I felt about it when I was growing up into my 20s. Such an arrogant way to think now that I'm like separate from it, but that's how I felt at the time. The first nightmare I ever had as a child, I was 4 years old. I was in pre-K and we had just laid down to take a nap. And my pallet that I was sleeping on just so happened to be near a grate on the floor, the grate for an air vent. And I went to sleep and I had a dream that I fell through that grate and down into the depths of hell. That's a very intense dream for a 4-year-old to have. Adult me thinks it's entirely inappropriate to teach a child about hell. But if you're a religious person, if you believe in the divinity of the Bible, then you think that you're doing your child a favor by doing that. Atheist me thinks that's really fucked up. It's super fucked up to do. But it started the relationship that I would come to have with God for the rest of my belief, which was...
So there's a lot there, and then there's another clip we can just get to close it out. But that background story is what's super interesting to me. We don't all have the same path to our belief system. I don't think I do. I don't think Jared came to it the same way. I don't think Ear Doctor came to it the same way. A lot of us had different upbringings. So Ear Doctor, you had a Christian home. Did you have a denomination?
Baptist.
Same.
Yeah, Southern Baptist.
Same.
It's funny on that, real quick, on that last story when she's talking about hell. It's like, so that's like, when do the youth understand ethics? When is the ethical code taught? Because I think hell and heaven has to do with ethics about doing right and wrong. Mm-hmm. So when is that ever taught besides that story of heaven and hell? Continue.
Right, and the commandments. So it's usually like this big patriarchal, person giving you things you're supposed to do and not do. Now, I know a lot of different people have different practices to that, but I'm just talking about my mainstream experience with the Baptist church, same as you. And that story of hell, like you say, yeah, it is supposed to teach you to be moral, all of those things. Now, then God would get credit a lot of times for my achievements. And then I'd be blamed for my mistakes.
Well, I'll put it off on the devil when it's a bad.
Exactly.
The devil made me do it.
The devil wasn't getting beat. So I don't know how that works. But yeah, I think we still have to engage with the majority of people and how they interact with this faith. And so this discussion of hell early on, yeah, I know what it's for, but there's just got to be a better way. I'm convinced, and so that's part of what pushes me to this thing. I also think what's interesting is she already broke away from this view that this is the only divine truth, even though she still believed that she had been born in the right religion and all that, because her father was Muslim. even though he wasn't connected to her. So that became my first kind of break from the thing. Was I'm like, wait a minute, okay, so we're a Christian family. We believe you have to accept Jesus Christ to go to heaven, but I have members of my family who are not Christian. So
they going to hell.
Right. This is a question the child is gonna ask, right? The child's immediately gonna be like, wait a minute. And then of course you just feel like your job is to convert other members of your family. Like, listen,
we don't want you going to hell.
Listen, exactly. I'm like, listen, I want you to go to hell, man. This is so like that's
some wicked shit.
It's messed up. So I think she immediately noticed, like, wait a minute, this can't be the ultimate truth because other people already accept other, belief systems. So that was
my problem with the God and devil concept is it doesn't make you accountable. You can always put it off on either God or the devil did it, never you.
Yep. And that's what we said about Hatue, the native ancestor who said that he'd rather burn than accept Catholicism, because he was just like, y'all system, like, what is this? How does this work? How can people be punished? Y'all gonna be in heaven after what you did? Like, how does that make sense? Now, again, we're gonna have pushback, so we're not trying to interpret how everyone practices Christianity. In fact, usually we target this at Europe Christianity, capitalist, evangelical, mega church, Drewski skit that we're going to talk about Christianity. But I do think some of these arguments apply the entire spectrum of belief, even if it's not. So
wait till they watch The Righteous Gemstones, one of my favorite shows.
That show is hilarious.
Okay.
That show is hilarious. I got to give it to him on that one. That show is crazy, and it would fit well with his. It's like if you take the Drewski skit, make it white, and turn it into a series with a family. Like that's what it is. And the one thing I just wouldn't want to add very quickly is that the other thing with the way the popular renditions of what I've been learning a lot about over the last couple of years is that the renditions that we get of God, the devil, and many of these other stories, whether or not we believe them to be true, they don't even comport with what is written in the texts before we even get to the questions of the translations and the languages and all of that. Just if you take some of the standard English translations of the Bible, both Old and New Testaments, so much of what is said about the adversary versus what is popularly known as the devil and so on and so forth is just not, it's not the same. So it's even, the popular forms aren't even respectful of the original texts, which some of us also don't find worthy of respect or worship or honor anyway. But it's like, if you do, it's like these stories don't even pay homage to what is written in these texts. So it's in many ways just fascinating as just in terms of the sociology of religion and knowledge and what we think and what we come to know and how we reach conclusions. It can be fascinating on its own, just in that.
Yep. And to me, it's how do we come to know, right? That question, because this was the discussion we had the first time. How did you become a Christian? How did African people in the U.S. become Christians? It wasn't a calm, happy process, even if we were able to transform it, look at their book, say, hey, you're interpreting this wrong, right? Because that's essentially what we're doing. We're being like, look, you didn't read this section, you don't know this translation, you don't know the original language, you're not a Bible scholar in the way you're claiming to be, so you don't have the right to interpret the word, which is absolutely valid, right? That's a completely valid way to challenge someone's fucked up logic. But then what we're just saying is, but this book was just written by some people. Like, it's just made up, it's mythology. At the end of the day, you can use it for all these things. You can try and teach life lessons from it. I come to question that because I'm just like, well, we can learn life lessons from a lot of places. It doesn't have to all be in this book. So I know that I'm going to revisit the chapter, trying to focus up for this section so far. But if you can jump ahead to 18 minutes and 30 seconds, just for some folks, there's a content warning, as you can see on the screen, for sexual violence. So if you need to step away, if you don't want to hear about this portion, now is the time.
Yeah, I have to admit, there's a lot of sharing she does. And then you were asked if this will be made available, Laura.
It's in the show description already, yo. Check out
right on
the show description.
Okay, right on. Here we go.
believe how different he looked. He was such a cute little boy, and there are a couple times where people in my family tried to get him, but he had such strong behavioral issues that the average person just couldn't deal with. And I just couldn't believe how much he had changed from being in foster care all that time as a child, to the point where he made a sexual advance on me, his first cousin. And I was horrified and forever changed. I will never forget that. I don't want to cry, but when that happened, I was like, how could God let that happen to my cousin? How could he let this little boy, who was 7 years old at the time, get raped? How could he let that happen? How could he let him be born to two awful parents where he would end up in foster care for years? How could he do that? What's so different between my cousin and me? We were born with the same type of innocence. He hasn't sinned any more than I've sinned. Why is it fair? I'm really trying not to cry. Why is it fair that I'm here at college and he's here sitting in a baby stroller with tattoos all over his face, suggesting that we go get a hotel somewhere? That cousin right now is in prison. He's going to be in prison for a long time. He's got at least 10 more years. Obviously, he's not sinless anymore, but he was definitely sinless when he was molested as a child. And I just had a really difficult time. And the Christian excuses just were not doing it. God works in mysterious ways, all of that. I was like, that's not doing it for me. I didn't lose my faith right then and there, but it was a huge chink in the armor. I've been forever changed from that experience. After that happened, I graduated college and I started watching Cosmos. I was always a person who had a thirst for knowledge. I'm still that type of person where in my spare time, I like to watch videos from Kurzgesagt or videos from Hank Green, or I used to watch SciShow, which is Hank Green, but I started watching Cosmos and I loved it. I fucking love Neil deGrasse Tyson, okay? I went to go see him at the Fox Theater here in Atlanta, and I love him. I absolutely love him. On one particular episode, he said something like, for centuries, humans have looked to the sky for answers to their world. Humans have a really good ability to detect patterns. And so when humans would look up in the sky and they would see certain things happening, they would try to attribute patterns that were happening in the sky with what was happening down here on the earth. They would use it to predict when they should plant crops or when it was going to rain or anything. He just implied that humans, we have a knack for creating gods. We are intelligent, curious beings. We want to understand the world around us. And there are certain things that are very difficult for us to understand, things like death, things like suffering. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And it would explain why so many of us believe in so many different gods. It would explain why everybody's coming up with their own gods and why we can't all agree on one God. Because like I said, I always had this issue where if there is one singular God, why is he not telling all of his children the same thing? I also had a big issue in the Bible with God having a chosen people. That really bothered me. I'm like, so what if I was born an Aborigine? I can't help that. I can't help if I was born an Aborigine and during the time of Jesus and I had to wait for the white men to get here and take my religion away from me and force another religion on me. Or if I was a Native American or if I was Inuit, I can't control that. It just doesn't really seem fair. So I ended up getting to a point where I started watching YouTube videos like Dark Matter 2525. And his videos are like comical. They're definitely sacrilegious. He would present the Lot story or the story with Samson and Delilah. He would present it in a way where it wasn't wrapped up in the Christian wrapper of reverence. He told it like, doesn't this sound ridiculous? Do you really believe this? And I would come out of those videos thinking like, he's right, that is ridiculous. Like, why was Lot gonna let those guys rape his daughters for the angels? Why was he okay with that? Like that? That was it. The spell was broken. I think once you take the scary out of God and you see other people that are making these videos that are considered sacrilegious and God hasn't struck them down, it made me more comfortable in exploring how I felt about my beliefs. And once I saw that I was able to think about these questions and I was able to ask these questions and God wasn't striking me down with lightning just for having these thoughts, which is what I felt. God was giving me very much thought crime vibes. And once I realized that that wasn't happening, I was free to actually just explore how do I
we can
feel?
stop here.
And ultimately, I rationalized.
Thought crime vibes.
Not crime vibes, man.
My
Yeah.
thing too is, why is God always a he? Like, women give birth. Why wouldn't you give birth to the everything?
Right.
Well, one of the things that I
especially-
remember learning from Finch is that they weren't. So that's the point. So kind of what she's talking about there with Neil deGrasse Tyson, it like the overlap is dope. That the a lot of the African historians who talk about this will say that it started with African people just standing outside, and when there's no unnatural light, the heavens really light up at night. You can just see all the stars, and just by standing guard or whatever from the animals or whatever at night, you just see the patterns and start creating stories and start attributing anthropomorphizing the symbols and creating stories and all this other kind of stuff. And then there you get your religions, and then you also start to learn the science of how we're all moving around out here. And initially the fables were often associated with women's divinity, in part because they saw women. Finch taught. I'm getting all this from Finch, that women, because it's in particular the dung beetle and other self-generative beings producing life. They just saw women getting pregnant, didn't know men had anything to do with it, and were like, damn, these women are, so like women were off. And it was in many ways the Greeks who turned the zodiac. They turned previously female deities into males, and all of this other kind of, so it's like yeah, they did is part of it. And part of the evolution of humanity that seems to have brought with it this proto patriarchy or whatever, started doing all of the things to say, no, we men did it. So men did this, men. But initially there was this appreciation anyway, apparently. So yeah.
Like Fela Kuti said, everything is upside down.
That's a
Stranger Things stole that too. It's like,
yeah, I was about to say, and then Dante's Inferno. But yeah, I wanted to point out the social experience that we're tracing here, because I've never met this person, and then there was so much overlap. That's why I appreciate the atheist label, because I saw someone who asked, why does it matter what people call themselves? Usually because those buckets are used to organize thoughts, ideas, communication, scholarship, things like that. So if you see a Black atheist tradition and you see a worldview like the Ear Doctors or mine, and you're like, well, I didn't know that could be an atheist point of view. Well, there you go. Especially a Black one, which is why I appreciate her constantly highlighting race. Because the question of the Aborigines or the Native Americans, I was waiting for her to say, ma'am, you, the Africans? Like, what were y'all people believing in before this thing emerges? And sometimes in Ethiopian society, because I told my mom about Walter Rodney. All this is chapter 2, Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, by the way. He says the same thing you just did, Jared, and your doctor that you mentioned earlier, that you use people look at the stars or all these things and explanations of natural phenomena in the world, and they start creating explanations about that thing. But it just goes to show that people are trying to explain the natural world using whatever faith they have. Once we try and explain our internal world, I think that's when things get complicated. To your doctor's point, do you believe the strength is within you and other people, or do you believe that it's something that is beyond you and outside of you and shaping you in that way? But this woman's experience working from we already said it, white atheist debate spaces on YouTube. If our spaces existed, I wouldn't have had to have gone through those. I don't think Bree would have had to go through those. But I'm sure in her generation, she said whatever that cartoon was. Before that, I had the Amazing Atheists and Richard Dawkins interviews and all that bullshit. Before that, I'm sure someone else had white atheists that they had to go through. But that's just them colonizing the space,
And as some have pointed out, it's not a guarantee, and this is important. Atheism is not a guarantee of radical politics. It in and of itself does not mean people are radical or forward thinking. Richard Dawkins has some backwards ideas. There's people in the chat saying Neil deGrasse Tyson has claims against him, and I honestly don't know anything about this, but I don't claim his analysis of the world or his behavior outside of the camera. with any of these folks. And I do just want to acknowledge that if I've been wrong all these years, I thought Finch did read Medu Neter. So Baba Akra 60 or B Akra 60 is saying he didn't. I was certain that he did. So
I would think so.
But that
said, I read Medu Neter.
So there you go. So,
there you go. I mean, so let me ask y'all this: what do y'all thoughts about casting spells? And when I say that, when I think about the word gospel, like it's the spell of spreading God, like certain vibrations. I feel like certain ways you say stuff, like you were saying earlier, certain ways you say stuff is like almost casting spells. And when we talk about rapping, when we talk about songs, we talk about music. It's always a harmony when you're talking about da 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 da. Like, do y'all feel like that's like real or not? Casting spells with words.
I do, and I want to talk about what we're saying, the dialectical materialist method, right? Because we agree that there is a world of ideas, of memories, of concepts, and things like that influence each other. Where I go and push back is when they start confusing that with the material world, right? Like they start saying casting spells. Like when you read Moses, he ain't casting no rhymes. Like he's splitting seas and killing firstborn, right? To get free of slavery. So it always just becomes back to me about how can you actually cast the spell? If we're saying it's his way of sharing memories through space and time and that kind of thing, I fuck with it. If we're saying that this can be used to change the weather, no. And that ends up becoming a problem, especially if we're talking about planning freedom struggles. Like we are not basing this off of you had a dream, you thought you spoke through the bones. That might have, again, not saying that people haven't done that in the past. I'm saying that is not a reliable scientific method. For
like I think the Lord's Prayer is a spell.
Yeah, it makes people, it gives people peace of mind, I would say. Like you said, it can be shared across space and time. So the fact that like I know the Lord, our Father who art in heaven, or whatever, and someone in the year 1500 or whenever that thing came out, because I forget when they make the stuff. Yeah. But that he could say that, right, is pretty cool. I think that's powerful. I think that's the idea of an afterlife that like most people are chasing, right? Is that your words can live beyond you. I've heard the phrase, you die a first time when your body leaves, and the second time the last time someone says your name, or something like that. So in that way, I could see it as a spell. We mumble Asada, we talk about Desaïns years later, and people get pride, and that does feel magical. So,
listen, I felt the same feeling I felt leaving church the last time I felt at the end when Spinner played Az at the Wonder Party with Stevie Wonder happening to be in like I felt the same. Seriously, like So I know, that there are things that can happen when we chant and when we dance and when we gather and when we hear what we want to hear, that good sound, whatever we define that as. But yeah, to Laura's point, like I'm not building my next day's plan, never mind a revolution around that, and then to the Moses point, look, once I realized you can go, through the so-called Suez Canal and see both sides of the, of the banks of Egypt on the Red Sea, I was like, this whole parting the Red Sea and all this stuff ain't so special. Like it's right there. And Israel, to this day, Israel and Egypt share a border. So it's like, I'm like, people are doing a lot with these stories. But I remember thinking that. I remember standing there, look, I was like, well, you can see both sides. Like, how big was this trip? Like, this Exodus.
It was a dry day.
What's the big deal?
He kicked some blood left to right and walked them across. I mean, well, the whole story is a myth, which is the dangerous thing when we talk about Zionism in Israel. Again, my only question is like, where does this stuff come from? And if you do not know that this is mythology, then you're going to use it as an excuse for a lot of fucked up things. So that's the whole chosen people, Zionist mythology. Really, like Kwame Ture is debating people when I'm looking at his old debates, and they're using like the Torah to argue with him. And he's like, bro, what? Like, this is a real country. Like, what do you mean? My storybook can't just tell me that this is my shit. But that is white people history, though. That's what the Mormons did. That's what the Zionists did. That's what the Pilgrims did. Religious fanatics are, white racist religious fanatics are part of America's foundation.
So can music and dance be spiritual, or is it the science of vibrations?
I feel like those words do similar things. So I'd be curious. Yeah, what do you mean by that? What
well, when I say like when you at church, when you was at church back in the day, and somebody caught the Holy Ghost, it was usually some singing going on, some dum 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 dum, and you seen them come out of their body and do some old other shit, and then you would say that's a spiritual thing, and there's no you seeing it. It's not like it's fake. But like that's what we would call spiritual. So do you recognize that being spiritual,
or the power of suggestion? It's the same energy that made me swing on this dude in 12th grade because the crowd around me was saying, do it. Yeah. Seriously. Like, I think it's that same kind of thing. In other words, I don't believe that anybody is actually possessed or actually experiences something. But it's the power of suggestion, and that when people that you are impressed by or want to impress or moved by, or there's that, people talk about the psychology of crowds, all those kinds of things is very real. And if the energy in the room is have this experience, fall down when I touch your forehead and all that, if people will succumb to that, I think that's, perfectly logical. And yes, it is. There are things happening to us chemically, biologically, when we hear sounds, when we're in spaces that move us to. So I think there are material ways of explaining it, but yeah. So yeah.
And I'm good again. I just come back to like the stuff we can verify, right? So because I'll be like, okay, that's moving you. Consciousness is not fully understood. Maybe that's how you're feeling it on the inside, but then this happens, right? And so that's when the child of me,
right,
in tongues. I'm like, all right, now.
It's almost
what tongue are you speaking? Oh, it's a dead language. Oh, it's an ancient tongue. You wouldn't know it. Yeah, all right. Yes, Shibaba. Like whatever the fuck. That's I guess, like.
So say it again exactly the way you just said it.
Exactly. Tell me what it means. And to that point,
I just seen my mom catching the Holy Ghost, and I was like, what the hell is going on?
And I'm cool when you dance and all of those things. But again, you're in a zone. Everybody gets that way. There's all sorts of other things. In sports, you make 4 in a row on the court, you feel like you in the flow. Like that's just how it feels. There's a lot of ways in consciousness people experience things. My whole point is you can be taken out of that too. And I get really thrown when people also catch the spirit and can't like pretend like they're responsible for their actions. So the simple story I'll share is my younger brother, not by blood, but like family, came to church with us one day. That was the condition. He had to sleep over on Saturdays to play all the games. He had to go to church 7 a.m. service. So we up and it's praise and worship. And someone catches the Holy Ghost next to him, a grown woman, and she's going left and right in front, and she smacks the shit out of him with the back of her hand. Now, what is a normal adult reaction to smacking this shit out of a child? Oh, baby, I'm sorry. Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. But you can't break the act.
Nah.
You can't break. So she kept going on like she didn't notice and and he was not sleeping over Saturdays after that. So
is it an act though?
Huh?
Is it an act though?
That's you can say you're fully absorbed and all of that. I tend to believe for some of this stuff, it is performative. Yes, the speaking in tongues is performative in my opinion. People. So
when you black out and you fighting and you just black out, just go. Is that an act, or are you in a zone or somewhere where you can't even have consciousness?
Hey, Jared already talked about like that's a neurophysical thing. Like we would have to talk about how was your adrenaline feeling? What do you was your fight or flight in motion? Were you being suggested about? Were people saying fight like next to you? Or people saying, oh, like that kind of stuff?
So the easy way to explain it is it was a spiritual thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like
I asked you what that means. And it's a very
I mean, if you can explain it, that's something you could be like, well, it's spiritual.
So that's the thing though. That's the thing. Saying that being unable to explain one particular thing should not mean we feel that that space with God or spirits or whatever. It should just be, I don't have the explanation yet or at this moment, but I think that we can find one. And usually, you can. There's this thing that there was, using the example at one point in some professional soccer match during a penalty kick, where the player has a chance to just stand 10, 12 yards away and shoot at the goal. The keeper did something where I think it was like the keeper walked away from the goal or something really weird instead of standing there ready to defend. And it created a disturbance in the psyche of the kicker to the point where they missed the whole goal. But when the keeper or other keepers tried to duplicate that to mess with the opponent, it didn't work because and the argument was the psychology required the newness of it. So it wasn't something that you could just duplicate over and over and over again. And it occurred to me, that popped into my head as I was listening to what that I think what I was thinking was that when you create these moments that are seemingly new or different, you can get a different kind of reaction, but you can't institutionalize that and replicate it over and over and over again. And that's how you can have people fill in these gaps of, I'm going to continue on with the performance, even if it's unconscious or conscious, or I'm going to stick with this abnormality and, just finish the abnormal moment. But if you try to recreate it again, they're not going to go like the same person that caught the spirit on that one Sunday is not likely, I would assume, to do the same thing again as a response to the same thing from that same preacher in that same space in the same way the next week. And at which point, if that person was every week standing, falling out and slapping the kid next to her and all of that, people would be like, come on now. Come on, Mary. Come on, Miss
you go
Mary.
Try to get attention again and
You know
show
what I'm
off
saying?
your
There
Sunday
she go
hat.
Come on.
Just want to show your hat off. I see.
Oh man, all right. We talked about service. You reminded me. That's the perfect transition into this next story. So I know it got discussed last week, but I don't know if we got to air the skit that's been going viral. So I wanted to talk about that one. So Jerry, you want to pull that up for us?
Yeah, this was. And can I just say, I was aware that this person existed, but I had never seen any of their stuff.
Really?
Never. And I'm crazy impressed.
Yeah, he's funny as hell.
This was very well done. But
wait, before we start, real quick, revolutionary guide to comedy. Here, Doctor, we've been talking about this. My rule is simple. Okay, punch up. That's what makes the joke funny. Talk about your own experience, your own shit, or punch up. Punch at power, punch at corruption, punch at people exploiting people, preying on people. Which is, by the way, here, Doctor, we talked. I said my favorite Dave Chappelle skit is Black Bush. Yeah, because that is still funny to this day and still relevant. So just want to say, sometimes Drewski punches down. That's not when I'm the biggest fan of his content, but he made fun of the proud to be American, right? That was one of his last ones. And then this one was the mega church pastor, definitely punching up with this. So I appreciate it.
And keep Lork's point in mind. I like that. And when you all come back at 12 o'clock, 11 for Ron Hall and 12 for Xavier Shakur, the Pan-African comedy discussion, but the Lork's point, the revolutionary guide to comedy, punch up or at yourself. Right? I like that. All right.
Do you want a revolution? I'm gonna have Wanda stand up here. Wanda, please. Wanda told us earlier this month that she could not have a baby anymore. So I impregnated her with the word of God. I'm going to impregnate everyone with the word of God. You gonna get pregnant with the word of God. You gonna get pregnant with the word of God. You gonna get pregnant with the word of God. Impregnate.
That's crazy.
As somebody in the congregation asked why I'm wearing Christian Dior and Christian Louboutins. Because I'm a Christian and I walk in the blood of Jesus. Give him some praise. I'm a Christian first and I walk in the blood of Jesus. Give him some praise. Give him some praise. We are raising funds for a project in Zimbabwe. Yes, we are trying to get our congregation over in Africa. Amen. We wanted to raise $4 million for that. Amen. Hallelujah. That needs to appear today. We are not letting anyone leave until we reach our goal. Amen. Hallelujah. Life savings here. Give him some praise for that. Give it his life savings up. Apostle Richie says, baby, can you help me? I said, can you help me? I said, can you help me? I'm going to finish this word here. And I'm going to do the Christian version. Don't worry about it. I'm going to do the Christian version. I'm driving this Billy Bentayga because I believe in Christ. Can you leap on your legs like a survivor? Can you leap on your legs till the money fall out your pocket?
Still praise the Lord.
With the monster drinks.
He's the person in white. Hey, come on, man. Hey, get your hands off my car. You gave tithes and offering? No. Back the fuck up, man.
Oh boy, that's funny. That's good comedy. So, did y'all have any ideas on who that was based off of? Because I know some people were able to make the connection.
Which one?
The roll call got it. TD Jakes, Creflo Dollar.
Yeah. The lock them doors. The floating pastor
The
thing's
lock them
actually
doors, yeah.
Mississippi. So there's a pastor in Mississippi because they use it for their Christmas play to do it. So he's practiced that. They had a flight school come in and teach them these things. And there's somebody who was in the Christmas play in my church. I think that's pretty cool. Again, we always get into this balance of like, what are they doing that is acceptable? And then where's the scamming come in? So I thought about those few, but there was a specific one I wanted to mention. I'm not sure if y'all were aware of him, especially since we're talking about MLK Day, but and again, content warning for folks with the church and sadly what we're about to talk about.
I want to show you my favorite preacher when you get a chance.
Yeah, go ahead. Before we get into this one, because Bishop Eddie Long is another one who I 100% with the Bentley at the end. Yeah, that's who a lot of mega pastors, but that's
what year did he die? What year is that?
2017.
Yeah.
This is dies at 63. Go ahead, your doctor. Share a little bit about your pastor.
So my favorite pastor is this one right here. You can take that off the screen for a second. This guy right here is mine.
Whatever, then I'm wrong. You got me now. You got me now. You figured me out. You fucking income fucking poop. You figured me out. You got me red-handed. God allowed when he tell me I'm God too, huh?
Yo, big up CRMDR 2019 sending in the love, $10. Appreciate you.
Figure me out.
Hit that like button, subscribe. If you're new to the channel, go to patreon.com, become a member over there. Get footage that's rare. All right, my bad.
No, it's all of the, again, these pastors, they give us some of the greatest content, unfortunately.
I come in the name of Jesus and the Lord, bitch.
Anybody who brings back the old school insults, the nincompoops, that's
nincompoop.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild.
Okay. Sadly, there's truth again at the edge of biting comedy, at good satire, punching up. You're gonna get at the truth of things. So this is who I immediately thought of. I've talked about my church background a little bit. I'm giving away plenty of it at this point. But Bishop Eddie Long, controversial megachurch pastor, dies at 63. I actually did visit Eddie Long's church while I was a kid, like I want to say 12, 13. Thankfully, my dad was a chaperone because Bishop Eddie Long is not someone to be trusted around youth. So Bishop Eddie Long, controversial church pastor, dies at 63. Bishop Eddie Long was a leader who fell from grace after he was accused of sexually coercing 4 young male congregants. Has died. He was 63. Long's death was confirmed in a statement by New Birth Missionary Baptist Church and reported by multiple news outlets. According to the statement, Long died on Sunday after a gallant private flight with an aggressive form of cancer. 3 months prior, he issued a statement talking about his health, so on and so forth. And now there becomes this discussion about his legacy, right? Bishop Long's ministry, although it did a lot of good, let me be clear when I say there were a lot of moments of positive ministry moments where lives were changed in terms of socioeconomic standing. But the way in which that ministry took place was an emphasis on personal piety, holiness, and much the prophetic witness against injustices in the broader society. So they go on to discuss his background, his parents, that he had this church in Lithonia, Georgia, New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, which grew to one of the largest mega churches with 25,000, I think, members. Goes on to say Long's church, and this was a very interesting point for me. So there were 2 places, I believe, Dr. King's funeral was held. Part of the session was held at Ebenezer, which I think is his family church that his grandfather even was pastor over. But because that was small and because they thought King should get Coretta, I believe, by the way, should get a head of state type funeral procession, they also did the second part in Lithonia. So I think the first part of Coretta's funeral was held at Ebenezer. The second part was held in Lithonia, Georgia at Bishop Eddie Long's church. So it says it was at Long's church. Coretta Scott was held, drawing mourners such as, let's look, President George W. Bush, Presidents Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, and George H.W. Bush. Yeah, you could have kept it in the small service, bro. I didn't need it at that. So this is the kind of Christianity we're talking about. Now, arguably the biggest headline Long made was in 2010, 4 young men who were members of his church filed civil lawsuits accusing him of sexual misconduct. Long had denied the allegations, citing he'd only been their mentor. Now,
if y'all look up the definition for mentor,
yeah, that's why a lot of my African world folks won't even use that word. They say jegna or some other term because that word has its own disturbing history for sure.
Oh, it does, but there's something more disturbing because he didn't say mentor. So I wanted to say Long is facing allegations that he sexually abused 4 men who received his mentorship as a spiritual daddy.
I didn't mean to laugh that loud.
I mean, that's so no, he didn't say mentor.
Oh my God.
3 of the men were older than 18, but one said he was 17 at the time of the alleged abuse. Now, there's more in this discussion. Again, they allege it's the socioeconomic mobility that this person was talking about. He was going to groom them so they could give money, new cars, housing, and took them on exotic trips. Now, this whole story has actually been parodied in something that was very unpopular in the church, but went platinum in these hater streets. That was Honk for Jesus, the movie with Regina Hall and Sterling K. Brown. And that is what that's a parody of for those who are wondering. If you thought that movie was extra funny and felt a little too close to home, it is coming after Eddie Long of New Birth Baptist Church in Lithonia, Georgia. So it's a mess. So again, this is who Drewski's making fun of. This is what we're talking about. Now, I want to see where it talks about it. As always, it's a rags to riches story, which is what's so powerful about these Joshua generation style churches. Starts with 300 members. Now it's a stadium style church. I went to the campus. We played basketball because they had indoor courts on the campus. So again, positives, negatives for the community. We always wonder where all these resources are going. So beautiful campus. Ludacris came that weekend, which was wild because I had just been in a Sunday school session where they said we can't listen to rap music because it says all this horrible shit. And
oh my goodness, isn't that ludicrous? That's ludicrous. Really.
So I'm already like, questions.
Yo, the look on somebody's face when he said, "Call me spiritual daddy,"
bro. Now, Capitalism must expand, right? So we're sitting there trying to frame this as a good thing, but no. So long as one of the most influential Black preachers in the country and abroad, his sermons are televised in 170 countries, and he routinely meets with celebrities and political leaders, both Democrats and Republicans. His church is a manifestation of the prosperity gospel. He also called name it and claim it style of preaching, claiming God does not want you to be poor. Convenient. He doesn't want me, Bishop Eddie Long, to be poor. Y'all, yeah. Indeed, Long preaches Jesus was not poor and that riches are a sign of God's blessing. Now, was Jesus driving a $350,000 Bentley? I don't know. I don't think so. He bought a $1.1 million home in 2005 and favors gold necklaces and Rolex watches. He told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution they asked him about the $3 million he received from the church and its charities. Long was defiant. So they go on a little bit more. Of course, this white Republican tries to audit his books instead of looking at all of the white mega churches that have far more money. But in 2007, Long's wealth attracted the attention of Senator Charles Grassley, who requested the financial records, and a number of other wealthy religious leaders, Joyce Meyer, Benny Hinn. At first, Long refused, claiming it was a violation of separation of church and state. He actually kind of has an argument there. But later, a Senate aide said Long had agreed to cooperate. As of last year, a Senate aide said they were still waiting for all of Long's records. LOL. So he turned all over. Now, more stuff, anti-gay movement. There was an irony to sexual allegations by the four men. This is what I come to. Long, like many conservative Black preachers, he's openly condemned homosexuality. In 2004, he led a march in support of constitutional amendment to define marriage as a union between one man and one woman. Wait. When they wanted your records, brother, I thought it was separation of church and state.
Man, he must not want that choir to sing if you don't like them.
Yeah, we already know. Now, the main thing is obviously his own allegations. His church holds sexual reorientation conferences, which are aimed at curing gay men, conversion camps, concentration camps for gay kids, guys. That's what that is. A 2007 article in the Southern Poverty Law Center's magazine called him one of the most virulently homophobic Black leaders in the religiously based anti-gay movement. Wondering why this guy's got some money? There we go. This is common in the scandal of Tad Haggard, a megachurch pastor and former head of the National Association of Evangelicals. Haggard often talked of homosexuality as a sin until he admitted having sex with a male prostitute in 2006 and then resigned from the church. So that was enough of an overview, but that's the kind of world we're living in. It does talk about satellite campuses in Denver and one in Miami. That's where I went. That is my church home. So there is one in Miami. Pastor there is not the same. He is somebody who I think does things in the community. However, for his 20th anniversary, we did give him a purple Bentley. So, some things are different. Some things are the same.
That was a lot, man. Could I take a 2-second mental health break and get some shout outs? Big up to Zero PE, sending in $4.99. Now you know Ear Doctor Real One for playing Reverend X. Big up Zero PE, and big up to Kof24, sending in $10. Shared a link. Pastor Wayans got robbed in Detroit. His family has long track of scandal in Detroit. Right.
Wow.
Send your love in, everybody. Continue. We need to continue making this channel available for you. By all means, Lord, continue.
No, that was a lot for me. I was taking us on a journey. But that's the core of that Drewski comedy, where you're wondering, why does this pastor have a Bentley and flying around the church service? That's where your tithe and offering are going. Just want to be clear.
I mean, this has been long an issue, pun intended, and people have raised it. Foreman in the Black Manifesto is, in terms of how to redistribute the money that these church organizations take in every year, and this, that, and the third. Which I think should always be up for an audit and a question. When people start to ask, what is the relationship between these church institutions and the community, and
it's wild, because my uncle was a pastor, and his church helped people pay their rent when they couldn't. Like some do that. Some actually give back to the community. Others put it all in their pocket.
I mean, that's sort of what I'm talking about, though.
Mhm.
That if people are being honest and even to their own convictions and their claimed beliefs, then that should be the work. And
Yeah.
the church should be a space for advanced, at minimum, progressive politics, some concern about redistribution, and it should be advocating for society to be doing what the church shouldn't have to. I mean, the church shouldn't have to come in there to pay somebody's rent.
Mhm.
So while they're doing that, they should be encouraging advocacy and struggle around that. And absolutely, and that's all I'm saying, that
Mhm.
whether it's religious or not, any of these, any organization or entity that claims to be a representation of the community and advocating for the community should be up for some form of audit and community scrutiny. You know, and then to the extent that they're doing good work, duplicate that and keep it moving and get rid of these other ones. But yeah, I mean, that Drewski could do this and have it resonate with so many experiences over so much time, regardless of who he's specifically meaning to mock, should be alarming. That I think anybody who's at all familiar with these spaces who would see this might not know it's immediately referencing Long or this one or that one, but would be like, I see that in my own experience, and should be like, damn, you know.
Yeah. And shout out Malcolm again, but listen, look at this preacher letting foxes and wolves into the hen house. Because that was what I'm again like noticing. This dude is a political figure, right? He's letting presidents come talk to the community. So that would be my question, like, what is the cost? Because to the point about Eddie Long, again, like when I went to that campus, it was nice. They were giving kids jobs, working at the athletic center and doing different ministries. They give people a third space so you could have your youth group, you could play video games in one of the rooms. It's a campus. So that becomes my question to Jared's point, though, like, is it democratically distributed? Who's deciding where the money goes? Is it transparent? Can I see at the end of the day how much money went into the pot for the tithe? Or is that hidden behind the scenes with the money counter and Drewski's in the room thumbing through it, and you don't know how much money's come through? So that's how I
and it's like, who pays the highest tithes? Do they get more say? Big up to Arthur Handy 6545 sending in 10 beans. Here's my tithe to BLM. Hallelujah. That's right.
Yeah,
hey, we preaching a good word over here. Thank you.
And it works around here. You want more word, more time, tithe more, tithe bigger.
We're gonna get Kamal off the wires flying through collecting.
I could see it.
I saw Kamal giving some speech. He got that fly new hoodie. I saw.
Yo, you seen it?
You see that? I saw that. I said, Kamal, the tithing is good in these streets.
He got the
streets. I said, what is that? That joint was shiny in the video. That joint was sparkling. I said, damn, I need to get my speech. I need to get some speeches together.
Hey, he coming on here with adorable sweaters and everything.
Adorable sweaters.
the
white joint. Yo, we getting love right here. The ties are falling in. Big up to Wayne Curtis. All power to the people. All power to you, my brother. Thank you for continuing to make this happen. Let me ask y'all something real quick. So, do you feel like they pushed Martin Luther King's birthday and his holiday because him being a Christian and the whole turn the other cheek, as in this is the person y'all should be modeling yourself as after? Because I don't think a lot of black people know the revolutionary side of MLK. They know more of the turn the other cheek and be good Christians.
But he wasn't even turn your other cheek, though. That's the other thing that kind of pissed me off about learning more about, you know, even he was nonviolent direct action, and that part keeps getting left. So even the whole turn your other cheek, it wasn't as soft and punkish and demure as it's often conveyed. His goal was to be a permanent confrontational problem for this society. And then he, you know, if you look at his own, and to Chitty Macha's point, exactly what I was about to say, he was armed himself. He absolutely was clear, and it was only through organization and collegiality did he agree philosophically, tactically, etc., to not advocate. And I always point out, when you read Where Do We Go From Here, he's very clear. to point out that tactically armed struggle is, he thought, not viable. That it wasn't just a philosophical thing. So he was trying to think this thing through in an increasingly radical way. And I'll just lastly say that if you go and pay attention to these monuments, they are absolutely counterinsurgent symbols to suppress radical tendencies in Black and other communities. And when you go to the one in DC and you see that monstrosity of a claimed tribute, you'll notice that there's only 2 quotes, and themselves, cut short and extracted of real meaning post 1966. So all of his last years of thought is literally erased as they try to project this version of him that really never even existed at all, much less. So yeah, it's a complete psychological warfare endeavor here that we get annually and beyond.
My story from that, when we passed like ships in the night, when I went to DC, Jared, I went to the gift shop at MLK's memorial. And again, if you go to any of these gift shops or anything, you're like, does this dude write books? Because none of his books are in the gift shop. The new New York Times bestseller by a white man about him is in the gift shop, but not a single. You get the little booklets of speeches and stuff. Even when I was given as a kid, this thin, right? These are some of his selected speeches, all from pre-1964, yada yada yada. But where do we go from here? Hell no. That shit is buried under the thing, I think. So I just point that out a lot. To just real quick, I had 2 thoughts immediately with what you said about the nonviolence. One, 2 Black is writing something that should be coming out soon about this nonviolence shit. But Dr. King was armed. So that was, I think someone already pointed that out in the chat. That man had a pistol. Now, what's interesting, and 2 Black will raise this receipt, maybe we'll talk about it on here, is that Bayard Rustin, the future Fed, allegedly talked Dr. King out of staying with his own weapon. So I'm curious about the receipt on that, but we'll hear that from 2 Black later. So Dr. King was armed until Bayard Rustin, somebody we know was the right-wing element of the movement, convinced him, no, you got to be full nonviolent, don't keep the gun on you. Now, the second thing I was going to say is that a lot of these prosperity gospel megachurch pastors still take elements from what Dr. King and radical preachers like him developed. So Dr. King was like, all right, maybe I won't have the gun, but he would organize Black police officers, and his team would organize Black police officers. And that's actually something very similar to what I've seen in New Birth, where they have certain peacekeeping ministries, which tend to be Black police officers from the neighborhood who offer security on their Sundays to the church. So King was pioneering that, I hate that word, was working through that, and now it's been taken. So
was it true that he got this strategy of nonviolence from Gandhi?
I don't think it, not just from Gandhi. I mean, there were several influences. I want to say now I'm drawing a blank, but Niebuhr and Reinhold Niebuhr and all of it. Like he was taking influences from a number of different places. But but again, just to the point though, is what he was trying to do with it though. I mean, so even the whole point about we're going to collect the rents of people in the projects and redistribute it back to the people to improve their housing, like stuff like that is a lot more confrontational than I think he's given credit for. And these were ideas he was trying to advance and to build. Ella Baker absolutely was an influence for sure. And
Scott King is, I think, who Oil House is saying. I don't know
who. SCK, who was that?
Yeah, it's Coretta Scott King.
Oh, Coretta Scott King, right.
Yeah.
But again, when the way I interpret what he was also doing was he was again thinking tactically. So whatever we might think of that, and whatever other tactics we might think should be included or considered or thought about. He wasn't just saying, let's just accept this and quietly go into a supplicant role and be abused. And again, to the extent that we might not agree or he might not have been 100% right is again a separate point to what was he actually trying to do and what was he actually advocating, which is often ignored, to Lork's point about the gift shop and all these people that continue to their grave to say that I marched with him, I stood with him, I am the heir to his movement, all this kind of stuff. While a lot of them, and somebody mentioned in the chat as well, his children unfortunately have played an insufficient role in advocating for the man that actually was, and have even to this latest thing with LeBron Nike shoes. I'm assuming somebody in his estate had to sign off on that to get a check, and it's
I mean, that's like wearing a crucifix around your neck.
Wow.
I mean, it's celebrating death.
Yeah, crucifix made of stolen native gold.
let's put a electrocution chair on her neck, and let's put a noose on her neck. Oh, that's a tie. My bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That is how I feel about ties. By the way, I will not wear one. I've been like,
not even a bow tie. You want to do a mini noose?
Even the process of putting it on. The last time I put one on, I feel like I'm putting on my own hangman noose. Like, this is just.
I feel fancy that I can do it. That's really all it is. I don't really want to wear it anywhere, but when you make a good knot, like
when you learn, I'm not mad at that. I used to be like, I figured it out. I got it now. Okay, yeah.
I like fly in the suit.
Oh, man. Yeah, you want to put the presentation back up?
Sure.
Tucker asked a great question, and we have a legendary archive on Black Liberation Media. So, although one of these videos isn't from here, but just some certified BLM MLK Day classics, throw them on if you feel like studying today, if you feel like listening to different perspectives on his legacy. But there was the You Don't Know Me, State Fear and Press Branding, a classic Jared lecture, one I've used in community. It's excellent, just talking about how the papers of record fell out of love with King, as we Black radicals fell in love with King and where he was moving towards, so that kind of thing. And then the Sith Radical MLK Symposium, which is at Uncle Bobby's bookstore, I believe, Mark Lamont Hill's business. And it was with comrades Jared and Dr. CBS on there. Just two things if you want to study MLK's legacy today that I recommend you check out.
It wasn't at the bookstore. I forgot where it was. Somewhere nearby there in Philly, though. Somewhere, a church actually.
That's right. It is a church, because y'all are sitting. That's even funnier. Yes, that's right, because y'all are sitting at the big preacher chairs.
Yeah. The big preacher chair. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. So at a church. But
that was dope. Yeah, that was dope. So right on. Yeah, the press thing is wild, and there has been, and I appreciate the shout out, but there's been, I've referenced some of it, I think, in there, but there's been a number of good bits of scholarship on that to show that the press been playing with us for a long time as it regards to King, Malcolm, and Black people, period. But yeah, so
yeah, and you set us up perfectly with that receipt about King, the FBI director, saying that King was one of the biggest threats for the question of the Negro and communism. So we talk about all the time, if you're dialectical enough and you start coming at these material structures, you will be branded a communist. That's kind of how it works. So
one thing that I don't think I hit well enough in other versions of that needs to be pointed out is that two things from that. One, that Sullivan was saying that after the I Have a Dream speech. So it was earlier on even, and it was in relationship because the fear was that King was going to bring the Negro, so-called, to communism, and it was connected to the fears around the Cuban Revolution of a few years earlier. So to your point, yeah, we like King was directly, indirectly, consciously, unconsciously, and was being attached unwittingly, whether he wanted to or not, to these internationalist struggles that were terrifying those in power. Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Yep. And it's just funny because he just works his way to communism, which is the irony of dialectics. And King did study it from Hegel, from one of the sources like Marx, because King was a trained philosopher as well. So just very, very interesting. As once you arrive at the conclusion, the U.S. has got a military and one of the greatest purveyors of violence on earth, you're like, well, looks like I've arrived at the C word. So that's always fun to see. I know we got Lou joining us soon. So while I think the first piece is interesting and maybe we could come back to it, you want to jump just straight to Dr. King's discussing communism and Christianity. It's on August 9th, 1953. I pulled up the article itself so I could share now. But again, resources in the show description, y'all. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up my copy too. By the way, everybody, do all the things, like, share, subscribe, support the platform however you feel you can, and make sure you have the bell rung so you don't miss all of the offerings from the channel. And yeah, as Lark said, the show description will have much more from which we're working. So yeah.
So
quick shout out to Anonymous Grasshopper sending in $20. Love the channel and perspectives offered. Love the fact that you're here. Thank you.
Yeah,
right on. Thank you.
I had earlier to share some fun facts about King, like the Jamaica point, but I see Comrade Sarah saying King playing pool in Chicago to organize black men specifically with the street tribes is a great memory to have. And I have seen some pictures of Dr. King on the pool table, so I believe it, no question. All right. Did you have anything highlighted from this? It might be hard to read. Interestingly, Stanford has the Martin Luther King Jr. Research and Education Institute. So
yeah, I mean, I do. There were a couple parts. I mean, not a terrible amount, but so just first of all, so people are clear. Like, I thought this was interesting, and it's from earlier on in 1953, where King is already grappling with this struggle. To Lorik's point around almost being forced through dialectical thinking to reach some form of conclusion that communism is at least serious, if not, and then he just starts to engage this struggle over communism's disavowal of religion, which of course he is going to struggle with as a avowed Christian minister. But one point that he says here is that a second reason why the Christian minister should speak about, well, one, he's saying communism needs to be considered by anyone interested, whether you're a Christian or not, in humanity, because it's of how popular it had become. And where he says it's more than 200 million people are engaged in some form of communism, making it a force that everybody has to deal with, whether they want to or not. And so then he says that a second reason why, so that's number one. And the second reason why a Christian minister should speak about it is that communism is the only serious rival to Christianity, which I thought was a very interesting way of framing it. That he says other historic religions such as Judaism, Mohammedanism, Buddhism, Hinduism may be listed as possible alternatives to Christianity, but for Christianity's greatest rival, we must look elsewhere. So then he says, let us begin by stating that communism and Christianity are at the bottom, incompatible. One cannot be a true Christian and a true communist simultaneously. How then is communism irreconcilable with Christianity? I happen to agree with this, which is why we're going in the opposite direction, why I'm an atheist. Like, because I'm like, if you can't be a communist because of your Christianity, then we got to get rid of the Christianity, not the communism. But again, I thought this was actually just really interesting, and I really thank you for having us look at this, because I at least don't remember reading this if I ever have, and I just think the framing of it is really important. That again, communism is too big to fail or to ignore, as he's saying, and that it is a rival. I'm fascinated that he was seeing it this way, as a rival to Christianity. But then he also later on. So he starts off with this interesting way of saying it's incompatible, but then he ends up coming back to say, the way I felt like I was interpreting it, that he's saying, yes, I'm saying communism and Christianity are incompatible, but we have to make them compatible. Like, he doesn't want to give up one or the other. It feels like at the end, and I don't know, but at one point he says it may be that communism is a necessary corrective for a Christianity that has been all too passive, and a democracy that has been all too inert. So it may be that communism is a necessary corrective for a Christianity that has been all too passive, and a democracy that has been all too inert. So he's saying you know, we're, as I'm interpreting, you told us we're a Christian society and a democracy, but obviously they don't work as it relates to Black people and others. So maybe we need a communism and it made me think again of what talking about the other day with Vijay Prashad and Cabral, where at least I agree with Prashad's point that after national liberation, what brings dignity to the people after having freed themselves from imperialism is socialism, that you can't have true dignity. So, and I feel like that's what King was trying to struggle with here as well. I'll stop there. But
no, these are all my thoughts reading through this. I will say King is dialectical. That's what's excellent about him. And he does have to engage the material world because he's an organizer, right? Although Kwame Ture does, I think, oversimplify the critique of him and saying he was the great mobilizer. He was an organizer as well. And for that reason, he has to be real about numbers and about material like conditions. So he's saying there are 200 million people who practice this. I clearly have to engage it. I can't just live off in my mountaintop on high and not come down to the people. That makes no sense. And then, like you, I would agree. Now, to be fair here, obviously there are communist Christians, right? So that it doesn't exist is disproven by the very fact that it does, right? So Jackie would be one example on this platform, but there are quite a few more. So I'm not saying that it can't exist. I'm asking us to examine why Dr. King is, in my opinion, I think Jared's opinion, correctly saying they're incompatible. And it's because of this point where he talks about Dr. King was true to his ideology, which is what I respect so much about him. I think Dr. CBS says in y'all's panel that he was Kingian. We should read him in his own framework, which makes sense because this preacher framework that we're talking about, the right-wing version, the co-opted version, the megachurch version exists. And there is the radical preacher. That's a lineage. It still exists in our communities, and that's where King came from. To do that, though, you have to be someone of real integrity. You have to actually believe in what you say. So I 100% believe that King believed in Christianity. And that, in my opinion, is his limitation. That's why you and I would just jump to atheism, because I'm not about to do the back and forth on this nonsense. But he says it here, and some other Christian pastors in that article we're skipping over today said the same thing. In the second place, the methods of communism are diametrically opposed to Christianity. Why? Because we're dialectical materialists. Since for the communists, there is no divine government, no absolute moral order. There are no fixed immutable principles other than the principles of contradiction that we talk about. Change is constant. Force, violence, murder, and lying are all justifiable means to the millennial end. What did Kwame Ture say? What's his difference with Dr. King? He says he thinks it's a principle versus a tactic. The nonviolence was a tactic. King said it's a principle, it's part of my ideology. For violence, murder, and lying, all are justifiable means to millennial end. Said Lenin, we must be ready to employ tricking, deceit, and law-breaking, withholding and concealing the truth. That the followers of Lenin have been willing to act upon his instructions is a matter of history. And this is where we do get the split between Dr. King and the Black Power movement. Because Malcolm X has no problems with tricking, deceit, and law-breaking in order to win. Now, he says Islam teaches you to be just and to follow the rules, but he also says if someone puts their hands on you, send them to the cemetery. So this is why I see King having a very principled disagreement with communism, not just because it has to be atheistic, because we know, as we're saying, some Christian things exist, but because it can be atheistic. And this is my whole point. That is an existential threat to Christianity. It's not an existential threat to all other belief systems, so I don't want to say that. Some spiritual systems can accept that there are atheists out there because they don't have an evangelical impulse. But Christianity, if other things are true, if the Bible is not the true word of God, if you can argue that God does not exist or you don't live in a world where God is, having any impact on your day-to-day existence, that is a threat, because then the question becomes, what do I need this for? So I think King understands that there's no way in mass, because I always talk about the people who are Black liberation theologists. I think they're small tendencies within their larger faith, which has too many contradictions for them to overcome. So I really appreciated this from King. I'll stop there. But yeah, this is a very interesting piece by him. Highly recommend people check it out.
It's amazing how you can bend words to say what you want them to say. I think that's the whole thing about interpreting in a lot of these books. You can interpret them in many ways and use the words to get across a point.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I think that what's been highlighted here is also important, that King methodologically was sound in that he acknowledged his bias and did what is I think as much could be expected in checking his bias. He investigated his opposing views. It's clear he studied Marx and Marxism. He read Lenin. He was reading these histories and these, he was engaging the philosophies and the critiques, and that I think is admirable and something that should be considered to this day as people themselves assess their own study and engagement and honest engagement, with all of these people, histories, and ideas. And he was, so I just think that's really important that he did that and left that as a model. And that is important because, to your point here, Doctor, there are all of these texts and histories can be interpreted in different ways. And that's why I think his example leads us to that important question of how do we reach our conclusions? How do we know what we know, and why do we like what we like? And it's, man. And especially with a figure as him, and I keep making that joke that King is the most known and least understood person in human history, second maybe only to the historical Jesus Christ. And I kind of really believe that, actually, that the amount of people that know the name and don't know anything associated beyond the name with both of those figures is tremendous. Yeah,
big time. You said he was a pool player, Lord?
Yeah, he would go in and talk to the people on the, in the community, play pool, but specifically members of street organizations in Chicago. So when he pulled up to Chicago, instead of going again to the bougie folks to just hide behind the pulpit in some ways, he went to the people.
And when you read some of these biographies, man, like, he was a regular brother. Like, he was not as, like, a lot of these folks are not, they're not, we see them in a certain capacity. We saw him on the Sunday suit and at the podium, at the rostrum. But that was only for a couple hours a day or a week. Like, he was an actual human being, flawed and otherwise. Like, he was.
You know who else plays pool, but I think it's because of what they wear. Yeah.
Where did that
you got a Black Liberation Media hoodie on that you could do shots like that. Yeah, I'm just a regular guy, just a regular.
We see you on the turntables and we think he's this magical, mystical person, but Ear Doctor's just a regular brother like everybody else.
Go get your merch. Go get your merch. Black Liberation Media.
That was
well done.
Yeah. He was like long form joke telling. He was like,
I was like, wait, what's the setup?
He said, what is this about pool? King play pool?
I've been watching some Chappelle,
Take
my time to get to the story, But
that Jack Johnson story he told was, until he used it to rationalize Diddy, was on point. He was like, it's unfortunate to see where he's letting the skill lead him politically or whatever. But
new commercial coming, y'all.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had the basketball commercial.
And them kids grown now. Them kids got jobs. Them kids,
I know.
Like them kids, them kids out there. We need some. Let's get some new commercials.
We working on it this week.
Gotcha. Yep.
And when you wear a BLM t-shirt, you can hit shots like this.
There it is. Stop playing.
We got a little
taking people's money
before. Hold on. We got a little bit of time before Lou joins us, so I wanted to just maybe talk to the chat for a little bit. I had some comments. Yes, Neil got a weird case. Why is he around?
So I don't know anything about this. This is happening. He's got something.
Yeah. But we don't need to go into the details. I like the receipts and to lay it all out. So I could do that another time. But yes, absolutely, no question. Also, again, we always talk about the pairing of the personal is political. So he has a lot of U.S. military funding for his programs on astronomy and things.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that issue too.
No, he's a good American.
Yes. I saw this comment by Mani. I disagree. Atheists absolutely reject God, and often by extension, any metaphysical and agnostic do not. I agree. That was my point about not liking to argue. I think we do take a stand as atheists, but I was saying that the whole claim of agnosticism is that you don't know. And something that people say is like atheists say with the fact they know there's no God. And like, no, we don't say that. We can't prove an unprovable thing. So that's all I was trying to say.
And I agree. The Atheist Debates channel, I'm with them on that. That the atheists only make one claim, which is that the claims for God have insufficient evidence.
Yep.
There can't be a God. There could not. That's not part of the argument as I now come to understand it. So I'm not saying there can't be a God. I'm not saying it's I'm just saying the evidence for the God claims that have been made is insufficient.
Yep.
Shout out to ZZ Lion Des and then $10 straight out to ATL. Ain't seen him in a minute. Shout out to all my black atheists. I appreciate seeing evolution for revolutionary framework. The mind shift is needed. Send the link.
Yes. I saw this one from Jay. We don't need to make Christianity compatible with communism. We need to excavate the history of Christianity to understand why Christianity is the official religion of white colonialism and imperialism. Absolutely agree. No question. But to be dialectical, we also do want to, if we're excavating that history, examine why Harriet Tubman, why the Haitian Revolution, why all of these people, things, events are influenced by Christianity, whether we believe in it or not. So,
hey, John Brown, the more I'm learning about him, the more I appreciate his brand of Christianity too. He was like, the Lord said, "You're gonna meet this sword. You're gonna meet this sword, boy. You want to have a slave state?"
That's what I'm saying. Dr. King, which pull it from?
He was reading the same book King was reading and had a very different conclusion. He was very clear. These motherfuckers got to go.
Nat Turner too. They said you could have a good life. They said, Nat, you could be a preacher, brother. You could come on. You know how to talk real good as a slave. He said, nah.
and what is it? I forgot what I was about to say. But what is it about the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Torah? That these are all just stories that people live off of. Like they live off these stories like they're the law. This is how we should be living. Like I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense in their own society and social fabric, but we know we live in a fucking global empire at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So it's completely different now when you try and export something that was useful for your time and place in society and try and put that on Africans in the new world like that. That's why I end up seeing us get all this historical confusion and things like that. But you reminded me, I get a second to correct something I said in the first episode. So I pointed out how all of these religions often come into being to try and explain the metaphysical or our consciousness, but also the natural world. So I said that Taínos had a word for hurricane, and that's where we get it from. So their spiritual system was tied very much to the natural world. And I said Siberia doesn't have that word. And that's true, but I had to go back and look. It's not because Siberia doesn't have hurricanes. Siberia actually does have hurricanes, which is wild because it's the Arctic vortex, but that actually did influence their society and some of their beliefs and all of that. So it was actually back to Walter Rodney's point in the first place, that the natural world, looking up at the stars and recognizing the stars and the moon relate to the Nile and all of those things. That is where these religions come from. They have a material origin to them. So.
Well, y'all, that's my time. I know y'all got more show, but you know me, I'm on the clock. Appreciate it. This was a great show, y'all. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe. We had over about 300 people watching live. Hit that like, subscribe. Go to patreon.com, become a member over there. That way we can assure that we keep this channel going. Who knows when YouTube will be like, you know what, it's demonetized again. So please continue to do that. Go to the website, get some merch, and keep rocking with us, y'all. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all too today for this great discussion. Remix Morning Show. I'll be back here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. But stay tuned. Still got more show to go. Peace out, my brothers.
Thank you, Ear Doctor.
No doubt.
And yeah, we do have more show this morning, and then we have a special guest just arrived, and then at 11 and 12 got 2 special interviews coming up, so a whole, and then more programming later. So BLM all day. So Laura, you wanna...
Peace. How you doing, everyone? So we have a special interview coming up for you. Before that, Jared, if you could pull up the presentation real quick, get us started. So, it's 100 years of Malcolm X, but also celebrating 100 years of Frantz Fanon. And so we wanted to talk about that. That was last year, I believe, but we're carrying that over. You, Jared, had an episode, Lumumba Fanon, 100 Years, that I highly recommend. We also had a colleague of yours talk about Algeria, the Algerian Revolution, and feminism. So just wanted to, again, shout out the amazing work done on this platform and its affiliates, Mix What I Like, and introduce this next topic. So if we can shift slides.
All right. And thank you. Yep.
So Lou Turner is a clinical assistant professor at the Department of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Illinois and former academic advisor and curriculum coordinator, Department of African American Studies at the University of Illinois. He is co-author of Frantz Fanon, Soweto, and American Black Thought. In addition to teaching, Mr. Turner was Director of Research and Public Policy for Developing Communities Project on, shout out, Chicago's Far South Side. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Happy to have you.
And Happy New Year.
Ah, yes. Happy New Year.
Likewise.
Gotta do some little check-ins. How you been? How are you this new year?
Just working. Another day of work.
On MLK Day, we working?
Got to do the work.
Oh, man. Well, we got a lot coming on the platform starting at 11, so I want to get straight into it. This book, Frantz Fanon, Soweto, and American Black Thought, was excellent. I want to thank you for that work. We had Omowale on last time, and Walter Rodney, and we have another brilliant scholar on Fanon. I really appreciate how deeply y'all know these people. Like, it's clear you've sat with them and developed a relationship with them over time in their thought and their praxis. So I just wanted to open it up with this question. But can you describe your journey with Fanon and why you study him and his work so deeply?
Yeah. I read Frantz Fanon in, I think it was 1967 or 68, my senior year in high school. I went to high school in New Jersey on the shore. And I actually had gotten a 4-year scholarship to Cornell, which I turned down in order to go to Howard University because there was a student movement there. So Fanon is in part responsible for my path as a radical Black intellectual from the beginning. And so at Howard University, during the student movement there, I don't think a lot of people know that one of the main issues of the student movement at Howard University in 1968, I know this is going to sound weird, but one of the issues was to bring Black studies to Howard University. As odd as that may seem. And they fired Nathan Hare because of his solidarity with the students. He went on to San Francisco State and started the first Black Studies program at San Francisco State. I know it's weird, but that at a Black university, that the administration, the bourgeois administration at Howard, would deny the teaching of Black studies. But anyway, Fanon was in the mix in all of that. I also want to bring up, by the way, a piece I wrote some years ago on the 1992 LA Rebellion. And I found a very interesting speech by Dr. King, 1967, to the American Psychological Association, entitled "The Role of the Behavioral Scientist in Today's Freedom Movement." And from the speech, it's clear that he had flipped his view on the urban insurrections. You know, before he used to be very critical of the urban insurrections, but in this speech in 1967, the year before he was assassinated, he had a very different view, and it is clear to me that he had read Fanon. Fanon's the Grove Press edition of Wretched of the Earth came out in 1965, went through like more than a dozen printings in that first year. It was just being grabbed off the bookshelf. And Dr. King, who read everything, it's clear from this speech that he had read Fanon, that he had changed his view on Black urban insurrections. And so even Dr. King was influenced by Frantz Fanon. And my thesis has always been that the Black radical movement in the United States was Fanon's original home. It wasn't France, it wasn't the Caribbean, and it wasn't Africa. Sorry, but that was just the case. And it still isn't, by the way, in those places, because of Fanon's criticism of neocolonialism in those places. So you can't find Fanon being taught anywhere in Africa or the Caribbean to this day. But the one place where he did come, and that's what we're trying to do in the pamphlet, is in South Africa with the Black consciousness movement. And so Fanon did, was very instrumental in the development of Steve Biko's Black consciousness philosophy and the Black consciousness movement amongst Black students, both high school and college. There's also a Frantz Fanon Center amongst the shack dwellers in South Africa right now. So Fanon, the one exception in Africa has been South Africa. And I was very proud that the first edition of our pamphlet, Frantz Fanon, Soweto, and American Black Thought, circulated in the underground of the Black consciousness movement in South Africa. It was read by Black radical students in South Africa. I'm very proud of that.
That is amazing. And so you begin the pamphlet with a dedication to two folks. One you just named, ancestor Steve Biko, and Charles Demby. So for those who are unfamiliar, could you explain who those are, and then also give a brief outline of what the Soweto uprising was?
Yeah, Steve Biko was the leader of the Black conscious movement. Was a student, a university student, and started SASO, the South African Student Organization. It's a Black consciousness organization, and he was murdered by the South African government, and I think it was September 1977. Soweto is the township in South Africa, which means Southwest Township, Soweto. And it was high school and middle school students who walked out and marched out in June 16th, 1976. So June 16th is always considered Soweto Day. To this day, I still celebrate Soweto Day. And it was high school students. And in the pamphlet, we quote Biko when he was asked, well, where does he see evidence of Black consciousness ideas? And he says in Soweto. He says these ideas have become part of the consciousness of Black high school and middle school students. In other words, Marx's point about theory becoming a material force once it grips the masses of the people. He says only material force can fight material force, but theory can become a material force once it grips the consciousness of masses of people. And so the idea of consciousness, Black consciousness, self-consciousness becoming an important revolutionary force is what we are trying to demonstrate in the pamphlet, and that it's no accident that Frantz Fanon was part of that, just like roughly in the same periods, a little earlier in the United States, amongst the Panthers and other radical formations, Fanon was very, very instrumental in the development of Black consciousness in the United States. Also, I'd like to say that Black radicalism in the United States became part of how Fanon saw the Black revolutionary developments in his famous work, Wretched of the Earth, or The Damned of the Earth, depending on your translation. The title actually comes from the Communist International. Arise, you prisoners of starvation, arise, ye the wretched of the earth. In the famous chapter concerning violence, he talks about Negroes in America are starting gun clubs. Now, who is he talking about? It's in Resident. It's clearly Robert Williams.
Yeah.
Actually, I tracked down. There was a press conference, it's 1959 or something, or 60, when Williams talks about blacks arming themselves, Black folks arming themselves, and so I figured that's what he was referring to. That he saw the reports in the newspapers about Robert Williams and starting at gun clubs, during the Civil Rights Movement. So Fanon took a lot from the United States. He took a lot from people like Richard Wright and Chester Himes, these writers, as well as other theorists as well. So there was always this two-way road between the United States movement, Black movement, and Frantz Fanon. Charles Demby was the editor of the newspaper that I was a journalist and a columnist for, and I later became managing editor for. It's called News and Letters. It's a Marxist humanist newspaper. It was no longer exists. The organization News and Letters Committees no longer exists. The philosopher who is responsible for the creation of the organization was Raya Dunayevskaya and Charles Demby. Charles Demby was the worker editor of the newspaper. He was a Chrysler worker, originally from Lowndes County, Alabama, came up north, worked in the automobile plants, wrote a very important, classic Black working class autobiography memoir called Indignant Heart, a Black Worker's Journal. He was one of my mentors. That's kind of intersects my background as well. So we dedicated the pamphlet to Steve Biko and to Charles Demby. Charles Demby also worked with Dr. King. When King came up to Chicago in 1966, Demby asked him to come to Detroit there were actually twice he came to Detroit, big mass rallies of workers, particularly Black workers, and to raise money for civil rights marchers down in Alabama and for sharecroppers. Sharecroppers allowed the marchers to camp on their land on their way to Montgomery, and the plantation owners threw them off the land. So they became landless. And so Demby, who came from Lowndes County, was now an auto worker, raised money from workers, auto workers, Teamsters, and whatnot for these displaced sharecroppers who were then living in tent cities along the highway. So he asked Dr. King to come to Detroit, I think it was Cobalt Hall, to give a talk to raise money for displaced sharecroppers in Lowndes County. I still maintain that it was that trip, although King had just completed his tenure in Chicago working on issues of housing discrimination, but it was that trip to Detroit where he first saw the power of Black labor. And that's one of the reasons that led him to Memphis to solidarize with sanitation workers who were forming a union. I've always maintained that was a very important connection. He saw the power of Black labor, organized labor, as well. So at the end of his life.
Jared, I see you jump back. If you have any questions, I'll let you have it.
No, I'm just listening at the moment. No, and appreciating it, and definitely like hearing about the Biko. Because Brother Turner, just quickly, because I Mix What I Like is an honorific to Biko.
Right. I write about all that.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate all of that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You made the connection for me. So I was already gonna question you, Lou, about this term American Black Thought. You seem to be giving us all sorts of key features, right? Like it's inherently international, is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing all of these connections across space and time, that it comes from previous generations and struggles, things of that nature. You're already resolving my favorite issue, which is the fake dichotomy between Marxism and Pan-Africanism. So I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about how you're describing American Black thought. I think that's something that some people might have a more conservative understanding of, but yours is internationalist. So.
Well, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question, American Black thought. But what we try to trace is the development of American Black thought out of the emancipatory project of Black folks from the beginning of being in the Western hemisphere. But American Black thought is essentially to highlight the radical character, the radical dimension of Black thought. And oftentimes, by the way, that involves Black feminists, what we can now call Black feminist thought of various kinds. So whether that's a Sojourner Truth or Anna Julia Cooper or others, one finds some of the sharpest edges of American Black thought is that developed by Black women. But the thought that we try to highlight is again the significance of the radicalism of American Black thought. Fanon understood this as well. Dr. King understood this as well, but Fanon understood it in relationship to global Black thought. In other words, in Black Skin, White Mass, he actually makes a distinction between thought in the Caribbean and thought in the United States. He thought that thought in the United States was more radical. And you can find over and over and over again people who either come from Caribbean or from Latin America, or from Africa, whatever they may have been there, they become radicalized as hell when they come to the United States. And Fanon understood that. I think he said in Black Skin, White Mass, maybe it's in chapter 7, he says, I make a distinction between the Black person in the Antilles and the American Black. In America, the Black man battles, and he is battled. There's an ongoing fight, and he knows that no quarter will be given. And he's making a point about in predominantly Black situations, there's a certain amount of illusions about the nature of colonialism and racism. There are no illusions in America. Garvey was a damn royalist, for crying out loud, before he came to the United States. I mean, and he came to the United States, he came radicalized as hell. So, and so American racism has a way of going upside the head of folks and bringing them back to reality. And as you know, I mean, both the Nazis and the white South Africans came and studied racism in the United States. So, I mean, if you need if you need to make the counterfactual argument, there you have it. I mean, that, fascism and apartheid came to the United States to learn how to do it. So, it's not a matter of preferences or something like that. I mean, this is objective. This is an objective situation and context in which racism radicalized Black thought. How could it not be?
Yeah.
I mean, even Booker T had his radical moments,
I mean,
By the way, I would argue that the famous, whichever way you want to put it, Atlanta Compromise speech of 1895 comes as the denouement of the end of the Black populist movement. The National Colored Farmers Alliance was the largest political organization until the Garvey movement, had 1.3 million members. And these were radical tenant farmers, sharecroppers, and laborers. And from the end of Reconstruction all the way up to like 1893, which was the last laborers' strike, which was defeated. And then Booker steps forward in 1895 and gives the Atlanta Compromise speech. So it comes after the high point in the end of the Black populist movement would be my argument. And so, in other words, you can look at history, then you can look at history within revolutionary context and whatnot. For instance, if you look at the rise of the fascists, of the Nazis in Germany, it comes at the end of 3 German revolutions, 1919, 1921, and 1923, after the defeat of those revolutions. So it doesn't come out of nowhere. It isn't just the economy stupid. I'm getting tired of that whole thing, that it was the economy, it's the depression. Yeah, it's always that. But there were 3 revolutions in Germany that were defeated, and defeated by the Freikorps, which was the proto-fascist organization, which later on became the Nazis. So again, you can look at these moments, even these retrograde moments, just as part of history, but then you can look at them in the context of revolutions, both revolutions that emerged, revolutions that failed, revolutions that turned into their opposites, those kinds of things. But the thing that we try to do in the pamphlet is look at Black thought within the context of revolutionary movements, the defeat of revolutions, the reemergence of revolutions. In dialectic, we always understand that when a movement ends and it begins again, it always begins at the highest point last reached. You see, so that's what Lenin called the dialectics of history. Like I tell people, Lenin's, what is it? Herzen said that dialectics is the algebra of revolution. Merleau-Ponty called it the dialectics of history. So when he says dialectics is the algebra of history. Herzen said dialectics is the algebra of revolution. I say, when are we going to start the algebra project?
The Bob Moses Algebra Project?
No, the dialectics of revolution.
I know. Absolutely. That's a great contribution, because you're on the right program. I was thinking just a little bit of pushback, because a big part of me and my Afro-American descent is resonating with this argument. But to complicate it, I do think of Hubert Henry Harrison as a foil to both Garvey and Booker T. Washington, coming from St. Croix, but as you're saying, is sharpened by American-style racism. You're right. It's just a boot camp here.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm a Garvey scholar. When Robert Hill put out the Garvey papers, I wrote a couple reviews on the first 2 volumes, and critical of his introduction. But it was a great project. Did a lot of work in collecting the Garvey papers. But one of the things he points out is that Garvey's mentor Sorry, his name is escaping me. Actually was a minister, and actually had worked in the Reconstruction and post-Reconstruction era in I believe it was in Georgia and whatnot, and was looking at how blacks were organizing, kind of the stuff that Du Bois talks about in Black Reconstruction, about how Black people created new societies, public schools, all that kind of thing. No, not Henry. Then he comes back to Jamaica and implements that program and influences Garvey in that. So Garvey's mentor got that out of that radicalism, if you want to call it that, out of that Black Reconstruction period, and reintroduces it into Jamaica. And Garvey comes back. Of course, he wants to meet with Booker T because that was his hero, and Booker T ups and dies on him and whatnot. So he never met Booker T and whatnot. By the way, Harold Cruz told me one time, I was at Ann Arbor, we were at a conference, we just stand out in the hall shooting the breeze. So Cruz says, isn't it ironic that the first campaign that the NAACP mounted was an immigration campaign, was around immigration law, to liberalize immigration law, and they won, and that's what allowed Garvey to come in the country, who became one of the biggest enemies.
That's I mean, Du Bois has Haitian ancestry, so it is all. That's what I was saying. Afro-American. We're Malcolm.
Yeah, history's full of ironies, man.
So, yeah, we're both stops all over the place. We all bounce around. I was gonna also add shout out to Omawale in the last episode of this program we had, but that sharpening in American racism can sometimes affect your ability to translate that into other contexts. So he speaks of Walter Rodney's critique of Kwame Ture, understanding American-style racism, and actually coming to Trinidad and causing some rifts in working class solidarity by saying you can't trust Indian laborers and things like that.
Yeah,
it can be a
Yeah, you're right.
But since we're talking about all over the diaspora, I actually want to go to the continent now.
Yeah, I lived for 2 years in India, in South India. And,
really?
Yeah, and it's interesting, in the state of Kerala, which is on the west coast and the tip of India. Kerala had the distinction of being the first state government in the world to elect a socialist government. This is long before Chile and Allende. It's interesting. Anyway, when I would ask people what they knew about the United States, everybody knew Muhammad Ali. They didn't know anything else. So
nice.
It's interesting.
I mean, that's a good figure.
I mean, you say, well, who do you know in America? I didn't say black. I did.
They said Muhammad Ali.
What they knew was Muhammad Ali.
We're actually going right where we need to go, because Muhammad Ali is somebody else who was influenced by Islam in a liberatory direction. And we wanted to talk about Fanon and his experience in Algeria, because you gave us some very interesting things. So first off, all these gems you drop, just casually, I hung out with Harold Cruz, all these things that, all our babas drop on this channel, Jared and Lou and Cindy are always dropping this stuff that makes me jealous. But you had an interesting receipt about Marx and Fanon in Algeria that connects these things. So I wanted to just start there. What did Marx have to do with Algeria? What did you have for us?
Well, I don't know if I have it. The very last photograph ever taken of Marx, if I can, is, I always like messing with people on this. The very last photograph taken of Marx, I would ask them, where is he at? He's in Africa.
Oh, I thought Marx wasn't concerned with Africa. Why is he in Africa?
The very last photograph, I think it's 1882. He dies in 1883. he went to Algeria, for the cure. His wife had passed away, and he had taken it pretty hard, and was sickly. And his doctors sent him to Algeria for cures. And so we have his letters to his second daughter, Laura, who was married to a black man, Paul Lafarge. We would call him a mulatto, but he was a black man. Sorry about that. And he was writing these letters from Algeria about Muslims and fascinating stuff. So those are just the letters. Then in the 1870s, earlier than that, in the 1870s, Marx was an inveterate note taker. He took notes all the time. In fact, he was continuing to work on Capital, Volume 1 of Capital, all the way up to the end of his life. He was constantly trying to refine it, so it's much more accessible to workers. But in late 1870s, he reads this Russian sociologist by the name of, Kovalevsky, who wrote a book on Algeria and land tenure. And Marx takes notes on Kovalevsky's writing on land tenure in Algeria. Okay. And it's fascinating because there's some fascinating intersections with the United States. You know what the Dawes Act is in the United States? The Dawes Act was named after a senator. I think he was actually from New Hampshire or Rhode Island, something. Dawes Act. And the Dawes Act was used to essentially expropriate Native American land. Because land is held by Native Americans and by Algerians, matter of fact, all through the Third World, as possession. It's communal possession. It's common possession. It's not private property. So what the Dawes Act did was to introduce private property allotments into Native American land. So each family had its own private property. So the land was no longer held in common by the whole tribe. Okay? And so all the land that's left over is then sold or taken by the white folks. And so Michalewski, in writing about Algeria, actually about 30 years later, is essentially describing the same process by the French colonialists in Algeria. The land is held in common by the whole community and whatnot. And the French began chopping up the land into private property allotments for each family, and thus expropriating the leftover land. And so Marx is following that and writing about that. Fast forward to Fanon. He's in Algeria. He is the chief resident physician at Blighted Joinville Hospital, and he's practicing, his sociotherapy. It's a very progressive form of psychiatry that he was practicing, that he had learned in France under a radical psychologist by the name of Pasquales. Pasquales had fought in the Spanish Civil War against Franco, was a leftist and whatnot, and started a clinic in France at a place called St. Albans. And Fanon had done his internship there. And so Pasquales had pioneered this concept of what he calls institutional therapy. Fanon called it sociotherapy, that patients had to be connected to and integrated into their communities, not separated into a clinic. And so their relationship to their culture, to their community, was part of their therapy. It's called sociotherapy. And so that's what Fanon was practicing when he came to Algeria and become the head resident at this hospital. So he and one of his interns carries out this experiment, if you will, on the Muslim men's ward. and they practiced sociotherapy. Now remember, this is under colonialism. Fanon is a civil servant of the French colonial government. And I'll come back to this, but I'll hit this real quick. A French colonial government that is socialist.
Mm-hmm.
This is socialist colonialism. Don't get it twisted. We have this image of what we think socialism is, what imperialism, what colonialism is. French socialist government after World War II, and French governments after World War II are mostly socialist. Anyway, he does this experiment on this Muslim men's war, and it fails terribly. It doesn't work. Sociotherapy, because the culture that he was, so to speak, integrating him into was a French culture.
Uh-huh.
You see, and one of the most infamous statements said by a colonialist was said by the socialist Francois Mitterrand at the time, where he said, Algeria is France. Fanon, by the failure of his experiment, proved that Algeria is not France. So I called it his creative failure. And so the title of an article that I wrote for work that Helen Neville and I, famous Black counseling therapist, Sundiata's partner, I called the piece that I wrote was a quote from Fanon. He said, psychiatry has to be political. Because one of the interns asked him, how did he see the failure of this process on this Muslim men's war? He says, psychiatry has to be political. Again, this is under French colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he begins to reassess what had happened, he realized he had to go and study Algerian society, Algerian history, Algerian culture. And one of the things, this actually comes almost by accident. He says that one of the assistants that worked with him happened to see, it was totally serendipitous, saw a couple of Algerian male patients with shovels that were going outside in the yard, and the assistant followed them. And these two guys were going out to help this other guy plant a garden. And so that's where Fanon gets the idea of creating a different kind of sociotherapy that was specific to Algerian culture. And that led him to a study of Algerian land tenure. And it's written up, it's in the, guys can see it. This is Fanon's clinical papers, finally published in 2018. So we didn't have this before.
Wow.
When I was, everybody else, I was being a Fanonist, and everybody's being influenced by Fanon. This is his clinical papers, man, as well as 2 plays that he wrote.
Translated, I'm assuming?
Oh, translate, yeah. There's a French one, and then there's the English translation. Right. And so now we can see what Fanon's practice was and how it was radical. In other words, he was tearing up traditional Western social science in France, a lot, French sociology, French psychology, French anthropology, all of that was developed in the colonies. So it was very colonized social science. And Fanon understood that, and he was deconstructing this stuff in real time. So when we read his analysis, his assessment of his failure, he goes and studies Algerian land tenure. And I'm reading this stuff, and I already know about, what Marx was saying about it, back in 1879. And it's like really spooky, because they're seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
And writing it. And so the postmodernist debate about, whether Fanon was a Marxist or not, because he says, and it's true, when it comes to the colonies, Marxism has to be stretched and whatnot. But they read that to mean that he wasn't a Marxist.
You're right.
And here it is, bam. So, But anyway, that was one of the things. But then you get into the FLN stuff, which I also told you about, and that gets into some of the contradictions within the revolutionary movement in Algeria, because you have different factions within it. Fanon was on the left in the FLN amongst the Social Democrats. And that was the idea of what the new Algeria would be social democratic. And we have articles by Fanon where he actually writes that. So it's not like speculation. Right. But then you have reformists and you also have Islamists in the FLN. So it's not like it's some kind of homogeneous organization. It's factional. And the factionalism does become leads to internecine violence within within the FLN. His friend and mentor, revolutionary by the name of Abeni Ramdani, was actually Kabyle. He wasn't Arab. There are different ethnic groups in Algeria. He was Kabyle or Berber, and Abeni was the leader, one of the major leaders of the revolution. Abeni was the architect of the Battle of Algiers. The Battle of Algiers began as a series of mass strikes, and then the French colonialists hit back. But he was the architect of the Battle of Algiers, Abeni Ramdani. He was murdered in 1957 by the Islamists within the FLN. So you have Fanon with very different, views about the role of religion in the Algerian Revolution as well. So on the one hand, the Islamist faction who thought that what they were trying to bring about was a return to an Islamic caliphate. That was their idea of what the new society would be. The Social Democrats, like Abeni and Fanon and others on the left, thought they were going to bring about a new social democratic republic.
That was more secular leaning, correct?
Right.
Right.
So you had these tensions, and the reformists essentially played them, both sides and whatnot. And then you had the army, which is a whole other faction as well. In fact, Fanon's Wretched of the Earth came out of a series of lectures that he gave to military and political cadre who existed on the borders of Algeria and Morocco. There were actually two attempts. Other more recent biographies, the first one was an accident. I don't believe it was an accident. There were two attempts on Fanon's life. And in fact, the list of radicals to be liquidated when Abeni, who was the leader of the Social Democratic side of the FLN, when he was assassinated, Fanon was on that list. But he escaped. But he was driving on a Jeep on the border, I think, with Morocco and Algeria, and his Jeep blew up. Some people say it was just a landmine. For a long time, biographers thought that it was a planet bomb. He ends up going to Rome for medical treatment after his Jeep blew up. He's laying in a hospital bed in Rome. And it's only by accident he's reading the newspaper. Somebody's reading a newspaper to him. And it says in the newspaper that Dr. I forget what his name, his pseudonym was had come to Rome for treatment, was in so-and-so hospital, room so-and-so. He read it, had his room moved immediately. That night, some essentially, I think they called SAS, that's the French Secret Service, came and riddled that bed with bullets, trying to assassinate him.
So in other words, what you're saying is that Coppola stole that famous scene for The Godfather from Fanon's life. Is what is in other words what you that's what I'm hearing in this wonderful.
That's right. Right.
Just quickly, if I can.
By the way, Battle of Algiers, the movie, it is not a documentary.
Right.
But a lot of people think that Pontecorvo was an attack. There's a whole connection with Fanon in Italy, which is interesting. But Pontecorvo, a lot of people thought it was a documentary. It is not a documentary. And Pontecorvo goes on to make a movie about the Haitian Revolution called Burn with Marlon Brando.
That's right. That's right. And shout out to Mtume Gant and Saturdays with Renee, where that has come up. Please check the Patreon, folks, and future more conversation about that film in particular. But right on. If I can just quickly, so just at I do have to leave at 11, and I do want to let the platform know that at 11 and 12, there are these pre-recorded interviews that are going to premiere. But that said, they're already done and on the channel. I don't want this I don't think we should, Lorik, I have to leave, but I don't think you should feel compelled to end this conversation with Brother Turner, and folks can just come back to the platform and see those videos later at their convenience. So I just wanted to throw that out there as an option for you both, just to throw that out there. But I did want to ask, while you're here and talking about these attempts on Fanon's life, if you could say a word about the actual end of his life and this confusing relationship that he has with some representative agent, whatever, of the CIA that brings him to DC in the first place. Like, right. What could you talk a little bit about that and help clarify for me and maybe others what was going on there?
Yeah, I wrote a piece, which I take this up. This wasn't the principal point of the piece. Is looking at the relationship of Fanon to Richard Wright. They knew each other from back in the day when Richard Wright was one of the founders of Présence Africaine, the journal. And Wright was the organizer of the first Negro Writers and Artists Congress in Paris, and then the second Negro Writers and Artists Congress in Rome. Fanon spoke at both of them, and Wright is responsible for it. And Fanon loved Wright's work. He later on became critical of Richard Wright's writing on the Third World and on Africa. But Fanon had intended to write a piece, a book on Richard Wright's work. Wright dies under mysterious circumstances in 1960, the year before Fanon dies, and it was thought to be a black ops hit by American intelligence services in Paris. Man goes to a doctor's visit and dies in the doctor's office. I mean, what's up with that? Fanon contracts leukemia. He comes to, and we have this from Simone de Beauvoir's memoir. Fanon comes to Rome in 1960 to meet with Sartre, to convince Sartre to write the introduction, the preface to Wretched of the Earth. It's the summer of, I think it's July 1960. And she describes Fanon as totally depleted, but insisting on talking to Sartre into the night. And Simone de Beauvoir gets irritated at Fanon, and Fanon says, you know, I would give my life to speak all night with Sartre about what's happening in Africa. It's out of his talk with Sartre that Sartre writes what Sartre scholars consider his most radical writing, which was the preface to Wretched of the Earth. Whatever one may critique about the piece, it is Sartre scholars consider the most radical piece that Sartre had ever written, and was because of this meeting with Fanon. Fanon had gone to the Soviet Union for treatment for leukemia. It went into remission for a little while, then came back even worse. he was being convinced by people to go to the United States. He did not want to come to the United States. He hated the United States. He famously said in Wretched of the Earth, he says a former colony of Great Britain had done so well that the United States of America had become a monster. So he really did not want to come to the United States, but he was finally convinced to come. He went to Bethesda, Maryland. I thought it was to the Naval Hospital, but it was actually to NIH, National Institutes of Health Hospital. And it's there that he read the galley proofs of Wretched of the Earth. Now, before he goes to Bethesda, he comes in under the watch of the CIA, and he's kept in a hotel room in Washington, D.C. for like 2 weeks while his condition got worse before they admitted him into National Institutes of Health Hospital at Bethesda, Maryland. He gets treatment. It does go into the leukemia does go into remission. He does see the galley proofs of Wretched of the Earth in his, reads them in his hospital bed. But then, as in the case of the treatment in Russia, it comes back, worse, and he passes away. Was it December 8th or December 11th, 1961? He always wanted, his request was to be buried in liberated Algerian soil. The Algerian Revolution was still going on. There's a whole thing that the FLN, and frankly the Vietnamese for that matter, made about liberated zones. It was very, very important in terms of the politics. And he wanted to be buried in an Algerian liberated zone in Algerian land. And there's a picture of his coffin being carried into Algerian land. There's a whole geography to Fanon's thought and to the revolutionary movement that is important to understand. In terms of understanding the development and the contradictions within the Algerian Revolution. Abani Ramdani, who was just Abani was considered the Lenin of Africa, by the way. It's one of the things. I mean, this is how brilliant a strategist Abani was. And I can't hear you, on mute.
Sorry, my mistake. Real quick, a question. You said that he was Berber, not Arab, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, because that's my understanding of the indigenous peoples of North Africa. So that perspective is very, interesting.
Yeah. The way they broke it up, the Algerian Revolution begins November 1st, 1954, All Saints Day. And they attack military installations and police stations. That's the beginning of the Algerian Revolution. Abani breaks it up into interior and exterior, military and political. And this goes all the way back, that the political should direct the military. The politics should direct the gun. That was the view. And Abani was part of the political cadre. There was the interior. He believed that the revolution should come from within the people, the Algerian people, should come from within the interior. The French set up these electrified fields on the Moroccan and the Tunisian border. So the ALN, the Army of National Liberation, was essentially marginalized throughout most of the revolution because it didn't fight at all. One of the things we have, one of the greatest documents we have of Fanon is his logbook from his reconnaissance mission through Mali, to find a southern route into Algeria to bring arms into the interior. By now, Abani had been assassinated, but he convinced the FLN to connect with Guinea and other countries in the south of Algeria to bring arms through Mali into Algeria. And his logbook is profound and very critical of the the national leadership in Africa. He says, the deeper I go into the leadership circles of the liberation movements in Africa and the independence countries in Africa, he says this country will be liberated soon. But the deeper I go into the political circles, the great fear that I have for Africa is its lack of ideology. And he says this in a time of the most practical kind of engagement. I mean, he's finding a route of bringing arms into the interior, but he's reflecting on the problems of the Africa to come. So by the time you get to Wretched of the Earth, and by the way, Fanon's work is spoken word, always trips people out. He didn't write it, he dictated it, he spoke it. So that's why it has this immediacy to it. But chapter 4 of Wretched of the Earth, on the pitfalls of national consciousness, and a scathing critique of the national bourgeoisie, of neocolonialism and whatnot, actually originates in that trip to Mali. Though I wrote a piece on Fanon and Pan-Africanism and the number of Pan-African conferences he spoke at, a lot of them, by the way. I think there's only one other person who's ever written on Fanon's speeches of Pan-African. We also found a recent one that had not been published before. He spoke at an international youth conference in Africa. We didn't have that speech before, so that's newly available. But anyway, Simone de Beauvoir makes an interesting statement in her memoir when Fanon meets with Sartre in Rome. She writes that Fanon, when he comes into the hotel room, first thing he says to Sartre is that he has 2 deaths on his conscience, that of Abeni and that of Lumumba. And the last piece we have in Toward the African Revolution is, could we have done otherwise? And it's how the African leadership had gotten, whatever you want to call it, played in terms of the assassination of Lumumba. Because he was very close to Lumumba.
Jared?
Yeah. But if I can, I want to, forgive me if I'm asking for some repetition here, but I admit I've never really drawn down on this bit of the history, and I'm just fascinated by it and would like to hear a little bit more from you on it. So I'm just looking at this one article that I had gotten recently, Frantz Fanon and the CIA man, Thomas Meany.
Right.
And I don't vouch for it. I haven't even finished it, but just from the abstract here, it's just the way it writes, the image is not lacking in irony. Frantz Fanon, the intellectual father of Third World Revolution, lying in a Maryland hospital bed, watched over by a blue-blooded agent of the CIA. It was out of desperation and his lack of success with Soviet doctors. Fanon's biographer, David Macy, reports that Fanon had agreed to American offers to fly him, to your point, Mr. Turner, to the United States, that country of lynchers, as he called it, for leukemia treatment. But it also notes here that years later, as Alsop, took advantage of this in the Washington Post to write about how this hero, the chief black hero of the New Left, died almost literally in the arms of the CIA. And I'm just, was it just purely out of his desperation for the treatment of leukemia that he ended up allowing himself in this situation where the CIA agent is actually looking to involve himself with Fanon to learn more about the Algerian Revolution? I just can't even imagine the scene there. So I'm just,
Well, one sec. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just gonna pause because I know we're coming up on the 11 o'clock mark. Jared, I know you have to go. There's a lot of questions. Lou, I want to ask, will you come back? We'll find a date in the future. but there are too many things. I didn't even get to talk about, you talking about Miami uprisings and the Haitian detention at the start of the book. There's just a lot. So Jared, I want to bookend it on your question. Episode 3, Black Atheist Tradition in the Books. This is well done. And
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord, for that.
A quick one to you, to Jared, to make it more complicated. Holden Roberto.
Say that again.
Holden Roberto and the CIA.
Okay.
That's okay.
Holden Roberto was close to Fanon. Turned out he was a CIA agent in Angola.
Wow. Okay.
We gotta come back to this one.
Let's get into. I mean, I'm down if you want to get into emails and start scheduling this. I'm down to support and be involved. Lou Turner, this has been great. Thank you for joining us. I'm not. However you want to handle this, Lorg, is fine with me. But thank you for the series. Thank you for the discussion. Salute to the undefeated chat. Please do come back and catch all the other videos on the channel. And for the eventual episode 4 of Black Radical Atheism. Let me go ahead and let you finish. I don't need to jump off that immediately, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's it, Babalu. Thank you so much. I like the expertise on Fanon every single time I hear you speak. If you all want, where can we find more of Lou? That was a question. I want to say Dr. Sundiata's Real Talk History as a Weapon, where you've been guests before, but any other places where folks can find you?
No, I just Google me and find my articles and books and stuff. Yeah. I would encourage people to get the book I did with Helen Neville on Fanonian psychotherapeutic practices, because we found all these Fanon centers all over the world that practice Fanon psychotherapy, and that's what the book is about.
Can you show us real quick that book you were showing earlier, the one with his notes? I think people were asking.
And this is our book.
Okay, your book is Franz Fanon, Psychotherapeutic Approaches to Clinical Work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the book on Fanon's clinical papers.
Fanon, Alienation, and Freedom.
Right.
Thank you very much.
And also read his book on by his brother, his older brother.
Oh, wow.
Better books, yeah.
Okay.
Fanon also had a degree in sociology, not just in psychiatry.
See, there's too many questions. We got to keep going with this. So I want to thank you. I want to salute to the infamous chat and everyone who came out. Thank you for the donations. Like, share, subscribe, become a member on Patreon. Stretch, get some tea or coffee. We got something coming on Jared's platform right now at 11.
No, it's coming here. It's here. It's here.
It's here. It's on Black Liberation Media.
Two back-to-back interviews. So we got a whole thing. Stay on Black Liberation Media. Just stay here.
Great MLK Day. I got to head to the parade that we're having down here. So
right on.
Really much appreciate
Where are you at, brother?
I'm in Miami.
Oh, you in Miami? Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. We got to talk about that Haitian detention. And
Miami is the jump off point. I mean, the only place that they had 4 consecutive rebellions in a year under the Reagan administration.
And they still ain't learned a lesson. They still ain't learned. So we got to keep going.
You said the man's name, and Reagan died during my wedding. So, you know.
Cheers.
Take credit.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Do some housekeeping. Jerry, you want to take us out with the infamous
peace, everybody? As long as you're willing to fight for it, as Brother Lou has demonstrated, Lorick, Ear Doctor earlier, the undefeated chat. Only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. And we will see you all week long with more Remix Morning Show. Black on the platform for more, with interviews, all stuff all day long. And thanks again, everybody. This has been great. Peace, everybody.
Black Liberation Media is a collective of Black and African organizers, journalists, academics, and media personalities serving Black and African masses seeking to further grow in their understanding of themselves, their histories, and the African world through entertainment and news. Please continue to like, subscribe, and donate to the channel so we can further serve you and liberate our people. You can also go to blkliberationmedia.org, get some merchandise, and also become a Patreon member and a member from the YouTube. Please do what you can, share, and show your love as we will show ours for you. Black Liberation Media.